With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced Sim Racing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client. And like we did today, we install a D-box system. We install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA. Treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware. And that's why we want to create something that's really gonna reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every questions there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an Advanced Sim Racing customer.
We've run our fair share of bull rings and Titan twisting circuits over the course of the season, but tonight the PRL MX-5 Cup Series heads to a different animal entirely, in the form of the high-speed, draft-dependent Daytona International Speedway. Welcome everyone to round 4 of the Precision Racing League's Monday Night Series. My name is DJ Clark, joined here in the booth by Joey Tevin with our director and producer Hugo Louise behind the scenes. And Joey, a wildly different track here tonight, and well, that frankly means that just about anything can happen.
A wildly different track, but might not be wildly different from a lot of the racing we've seen before this season. We were talking before the broadcast began that we essentially saw a drafting pack race of sorts at Summit Point last week, which is almost unfathomable. So who knows what we'll see at Daytona. If we can see a race like that at Summit Point, we've seen races at Brands Hatch, we've seen races at Monza this season that have been ridiculously close. I can only imagine what this is going to be like tonight.
It's certainly going to be absolutely fantastic to watch, no matter how it happens. And there, as we take a look at where we've been and where we're going, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of pretty tight and twisting circuits here. Monza Junior, Brands Hatch, Indy at some point where we've been. Next week out, we head to Barcelona on the national circuit, the Hungaroring, Sebring Club, Suzuka West, the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, and then rounding out the season at Silverstone National. It is really a great mix of absolutely every kind of circuit that you could imagine.
It is a lot of short courses, a lot of courses people aren't necessarily used to running on iRacing. Monza Junior, of course, to open the season, was a very odd little circuit, one that doesn't get run very often. And the Barcelona National Circuit that we go to next week, initially I thought it was going to be the Barcelona Club Circuit, which is even shorter, but we're going to the track that's essentially the entirety of the F1 track, with just the first sector cut out, and that's turned into a hairpin. So that's going to be a very interesting run to turn 1 next week. Always a very interesting run to turn 1 at the Hungaroring, and the rest of the season, of course. Bull rings, big tracks, it's all going to be good.
Yes, it is, but let's go ahead and take a look there at the standings as they run. Bradley Holly holding a narrow 3-point advantage over Ryan Kings. About 12 points back from them is Mark Kalin, and then David Van Roy, who's been putting in some good consistent times there. He sits in 4th place. Jeffrey Smith behind him, locked in a pretty close battle with Patrick Cowgill and Sylvian Kalin, Ian Cabana, Kelly Greenhoe, and Christopher Grimes, rounding out your top 10. In terms of the teams championship, it does look a little bit more spread out, specifically up at the top with Conor Ramrodeback leading the way by about 35 points over Mini Horsepower. Crikey Esports about 30 or so points behind them in 3rd with Unlimited Slip, about 23 points back. SRT Esport a fair ways back from Unlimited Slip, and YS Motorsports rounding out the 6 cars there up at the top of the championship order. Cars are out on track right now for qualifying, still waiting for them to put the first time down on the board. But while we wait for that, we want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors here. First and foremost, VCO, who we would not be able to do absolutely anything with. The virtual competition organization, absolutely crucial to our operations here on RaceSpotTV. Also want to give a big thanks to Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers. Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest, most durable profile aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members get a 5% discount on ASR products by using the code PRECISION5. Race Labs also is a sponsor here. Race Lab helps to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. Also want to give thanks to the Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products provide an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. And finally, we want to thank Ninja Trader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, Ninja Trader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. Ninja Trader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. And speaking of the performance, well, up at the top of the field right now, to the surprise of, I think, no one, it is your championship points leader, Bradley Holly, leading the way by a big gap of about 1.2 seconds over Mark Kalin. Patrick Cowgill, Malcolm Foster, and Dan Fendick round out your top 5. But, Joey, we do anticipate those times to sort of swap around here as drivers move themselves forward and backward in those draft trains, and everybody tries to get the most advantage they can around the long banked curves here of Daytona.
The race is going to be a pack race, but evidently qualifying is going to be a pack race as well, because, like you said, there are almost 2 miles of straights around this track, and that is a lot of time, especially for an MX-5 to be spending driving in a straight line. So you need to maximize your speed, and you cannot maximize your speed driving around alone. So you see Bradley Holly getting a big draft here. I assume that's going to be the large percentage of that 1.3 second gap over teammate Kalin, but we've seen a lot of small gaps in qualifying so far this season. With the amount that the draft is affecting these drivers, I would not be surprised to see the field a little bit more spread out in qualifying, but they'll all join up again in the race when they're all packed up together again.
Yeah, they most certainly will. Bradley Holly, they're pulling off down to the inside, sort of getting his way out. Kevin Berquist, who was running in that train, able to put a good time down on the board, only about 0.7 of a second off of Bradley Holly, so that'll be a good result there for the Crikey Esports driver in the number 64. Seeing Christopher Grimes moving his way up a couple of positions up into 7th place. Kelly Greenhoe able to put a good time down on the board where there with a 2:09.079. That'll be a good run for Kelly, and certainly want to put him further up in the field. But Joey, I've got to think necessarily the qualifying position not as crucial here as some of the other circuits we've been to.
It's still always helpful to start on pole, but no, qualifying position, if you're in the pack here, we've only got 19 cars in this session today. So if you are in that pack, if you are in the 19 car field and you don't lose the draft at the beginning of the lap, you're going to be in contention for the win as long as you don't lose anybody. So it's going to be all about being there at the end, hanging around at the end of that train or anywhere in the train, and just surviving until the end and then thinking about making that move on one of the long straights in the final lap.
Most certainly, and we have talked a lot about those big, long straights, but you also have to have a good amount of technical precision to be able to get through this infield section correctly. There on that corner, coming out of the infield, going back up onto the tri-oval that we just saw Kelly Greenhoe do in the number 12. That's a very tricky braking zone. Even in these relatively low-powered MX-5s, very easy to spin the rear tires there, get a little bit crossed up. You've got to be careful and make sure you hit your marks correctly to be able to maximize your speed coming onto the big oval.
Kelly Greenhoe unfortunately has no help here. He got a great lap down with little to no help with a 2:09.0, but this is a very, very bad sight for Kelly. He's just looking straight ahead. He's got no help whatsoever. He's not going to be going very quick here onto this final straight. And this is just agonizing if you're Kelly Greenhoe. You might improve like a tenth or two, but when Bradley Holly's 9/10 ahead, you're just sitting here wasting time.
Yeah, you certainly are. As Ian Cabana, the latest to be able to put a good time down on the board, bumping his way up into P3 right now. Good runs there for him. Looks like a little bit of a problem for Austin Bartlett Chase. He got a little bit crossed over going down into the first corner, and so that's going to put him back. Here is an outside look of Kelly Greenhoe. He is going to have a little bit of help there in the form of Ryan Kings, his teammate. A couple of drivers sitting down pit lane, waiting to be able to get themselves out here, probably trying to wait and come out in one of those draft packs.
And you really want to have a couple of buddies when you do go out here. So Ryan Kings is lucky. He's got a teammate. Bradley Holly has teammates. Patrick Cowgill has teammates. If you have teammates, you can all plan this out. You can all strategize. You can all go out at the same time. You can switch around and just maximize your position for all of you. For everybody else, guys who don't have teammates, guys whose teammates aren't here this week, it's a crapshoot. You're going to just park your car on the track. You're going to leave the pits whenever you see another car going out, and you're going to hope and pray that they're cooperating. Luckily for Kevin Bergquist, he has found a buddy here. He's getting a great draft here down the, I should say, across the banked curve here in between the oval turns 1 and 2. And this is going to be a great draft. And he's also not all the way to the back of the MX-5 in front of him, so he's going to be able to take full advantage of that. He's not going to have to lift. He's not going to have to push him. This is going to be a great lap for Kevin Bergquist, I think, as long as he can get through the bus stop cleanly here.
Well, and that's easier said than done. Obviously, the big dreaded sausage curve there removed from the inside of the exit, but that is still a very, very tricky area to try to go. And he looks like he is able to get through and out of that nice and easy. He's going to come up behind Corey Precker right now, trying to gain in a little bit. I'm not seeing any green times being set down for Kevin Bergquist, but he may be able to gain a lot of time here on this last part of the lap. Looks like Putnam there, one of the new drivers into the series, is able to bump his way up into P14. Let's see if Kevin Bergquist is going to be able to improve. That's a 2:11.475. That's not going to be an improvement for the number 64.
A lot of draft for Kevin Bergquist on that lap, but it just fell apart at the beginning and need the time in every part of the track. David Van Roy leading a little bit of a train here. Bradley Holly's going to be getting some help. He doesn't need much help. He's already on pole, but he's going to get some from Van Roy. But David, again, just has the worst possible view you could have in this qualifying session. He's got nobody ahead of him. He's just driving completely on his own, and the pole sitter from last week is currently in 11th because he's got no help here.
Yeah, and he'll hopefully be looking to maybe back off a little bit once they cross over the start-finish line, be able to get a better run together. By the way, it looks like Kalin is getting a nice little tow there from Bradley Holly behind him, and Charles Sumner also getting a pull along there. Good to see Charles back in the series as they run out of NASCAR 4 right now, waiting to see what everybody's going to be able to do. Corey Precker trying to improve here a little bit, as is David Van Roy. Van Roy's going to cross over the start-finish line. Doesn't look like too much of an improvement, but he will jump up 2-3 positions there, so a good run for Van Roy. That's going to get him up into 9th.
And that's a vanilla lap for Van Roy, a 2:09.5. It's a very good lap. If it was solo qualifying, he'd probably be in great position, but unfortunately, that is the negative or the positive for some drivers of a group qualifying session like this. It's not necessarily all about the raw speed. David Van Roy has a lot of raw speed, but just had no help there. Mark Kalin's going to get some help here in this little train. He's currently in 7th, again, on a 2:09.4. That tells me that that was a pretty normal lap, a draftless lap. Now he does have a couple of buddies. He might get a little bit of a double draft up ahead from from David Van Roy, and I believe that's his teammate Bradley Holly ahead. So this could be a good lap for Mark Kalin if he has navigated these critical parts of the track correctly. The only parts of the track where speed really does matter through those couple of horseshoes, and now here he goes down onto the long straight, and now you just hope and pray that the draft can do its thing.
Yes, indeed. You can see him shifting up through the gears there as he comes out of the corner, trying to see what he is going to be able to do, getting a nice little tow there from his teammate Bradley Holly up ahead of him. He is going to be a little bit far back. I'm not sure just how much efficacy he's going to be able to get from it, but we will have to see there if he is going to be able to improve. David Van Roy up in front of this train continues to set down some personal bests there, so despite the lack of the draft, it looks like Van Roy may be able to move that number 4 car up through the order just a little bit.
Just a little bit, but unfortunately there is that very, very large barrier between him and pole, and it's a very, very large draft-shaped barrier. But here comes Mark Kalin. You can see him; he's physically getting closer to Bradley Holly, and he's not fully driving the car here. He's taking a little bit of a breakdown here on one of these long straights that are just exceedingly long to have a little bit of a scratch. But here we go into the tri-oval. Mark Kalin, he's tracking decently. He's drafting all the way to the line. Can he improve from a 209.4? He can, and there you go. 208, only possible with a draft, and Kalin's up to third.
Yes, he is. Only 0.5 of a second off of his teammate there, so I've got to think that the number 62 is going to be very, very pleased with that run. Ryan Kings, by the way, has been able to close down the gap onto Bradley Holly. It's only about 23 thousandths of a second there in between those two drivers as Kings and his teammate Kelly Greenhoe continue to work together to try to play a little bit of leapfrog and work their way up towards the pointy end of the field. It's going to be Kelly Greenhoe right now getting the full effect of the draft. Look for him to be able to get a good run here, although I'm not seeing any personal best sector times being laid down for the number 12.
But remember these two drivers last week at Summit Point. They put a clinic on the field. They strategized with each other. They worked together. They jumped everybody in the pit cycle. They switched positions in their little battle for the win, and they came away with a 1-2 for mini horse racing. So Kelly Greenhoe, Ryan Kings, just the epitome of how to work together as teammates. It's not quite working out for Greenhoe right now. He's not really close enough to Ryan Kings. He's going for a lap of his own, but these two also did not qualify up front necessarily at Summit Point last week, and they found a way to jump everybody. And in the race, when everybody's packed together, when you're going to need to do a little bit of strategy to move your way forward in the field, I think these guys are going to be the ones to watch out for, because they can always pull something out in pit strategy, and worked for him last week to pull nearly a 3-second gap.
Yes, it most certainly did, and there Kelly Greenhoe going to cross over the line with a 2:11.030. That is not going to be an improvement there for the number 12, so he's going to have to re-rack and try to get back going. Mark Kalin, though, is right behind his teammate of Bradley Holly as they come through the corners. That is going to be a very, very good tow, I think, coming out of NASCAR 4 right now. That's going to be Kalin pulling off down to the inside. That is David Van Roy that he is now going to be able to get the draft off of, so that's going to help him. Holly getting on out of the way. What can Mark Kalin do? He dives the car down to the apron, cross the start-finish line. Is that going to be an improvement? Yes, it is. It's going to be pole for Mark Kalin.
Almost down into the 207s. I was rooting for that 207 when he was coming to the line. That was a great lap. His teammate Holly did the nice thing, got out of the way after he'd given him the extent of the draft. He got the double draft from David Van Roy as well, and now everything switches around. Now Mark Kalin has gotten pole. Now he's got to start giving back. He's got to start giving back to his teammate. He's got to start giving back to Charles Sumner. And David Van Roy now, 4th in line. He's going to get a quadruple draft, assuming everything goes right. And I think Mark Kalin's pole run could be short-lived, because this is going to be big from David Van Roy, assuming that this part of the lap has been good. He's going to have a huge draft here.
Yeah, he most certainly will. We'll have to keep our eye there on that number 4. As you said, Charles Sumner, the car directly up ahead of him, holding on to the back of Bradley Holly as they worked their way out of the Western Horseshoe right now, trying to see what they can do, coming through the crucial acceleration zone, back out onto NASCAR 1, seeing what they are able to get going. David Van Roy in the back of this train. He does look a little far back, unfortunately. He's going to be about 1.1 seconds behind. That's not really where you want to be. You want to be a little bit closer.
Then advantage Charles Sumner, I would say. David Van Roy's lost a little bit of touch with Sumner, but you can see Sumner has not lost touch with Holly or with Kalin, and Sumner's going to have that double draft. So Charles Sumner will be the one to watch out for. Bradley Holly, too, second in line. He's going to get some help from his teammate, but he's only going to have the draft of one Mark Kalin. See some cones being kicked up. I think that might have been by Mark Kalin, so I think his lap might be over, but watch for Sumner, watch for Cabana, watch for Julian Smith as well. Ian Cabana's got no help. He's probably not going to improve here, but look for the drivers behind him.
Very much so. Who is going to be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat here in the dying moments of qualifying? Only 1 minute left on the board right now. Looks like Kings, Berquist, Greenhouse, Sharp, Cowgill, Putnam, Fendick, and Grimes all calling it a day, so they're not going to get a spot to be able to go here again. Cabana doesn't improve. It looks like Bradley Holly doesn't improve. Neither does Sumner, neither does Van Roy, but they'll get one more bite at the apple here in the dying stages of qualifying.
That's a surprise. And back there, Ian Cabana was giving help to his teammate Jeffrey Smith, who I misidentified as Julian Smith, who I believe was a YouTube comedian of yesteryear, but that was Jeffrey Smith, unable to improve. And now David Van Roy, this is his second chance. Last lap didn't work out for him. Now he is much closer to Sumner. He's much closer to Holly. This is his last chance, and this is his best chance, and we know he has the speed through this part of the track, but he's just got to stick a little bit closer to Sumner and actually be able to use that draft.
Yeah, he's got to try to close up a little bit here. He's going to have his first real chance to be able to do so going down into the Western Horseshoe, but he gets a little bit sideways. That's going to throw him off there, Joey.
And that threw the whole lap off. Just got a little bit too much to the inside, clipped the grass, clipped the curb too much, and that just killed his speed there. And now he's lost ground. He's lost touch with Charles Sumner. He's too far back. He's not going to get any of the draft. Charles Sumner is going to be the one to watch now. Holly's all on his own. He's running his own lap. He's not going to improve. You can't even see Charles Sumner in the same shot as Holly, but I think he will still have the effect of the draft. And this is going to be his last shot. How close can he get? Can he jump into the 208s? If he does, there's a lot of positions in there. He could be as high as P4, but he's got one actual corner to go here through the bus stop.
Yes, he does, and Sumner running around in 8th right now takes a very aggressive line. Yep, that's going to be a cut course, and indeed, Charles knows it. He's going to pull that car off to the side and park it. Up ahead of him, it's the Crikey Esports team of the 774 of Cabana and the number 11 there of Malcolm Foster, trying to help each other out a little bit around as they go. Are they going to be able to do anything? Foster thinks about a move. I've got to think that much input on the wheel there coming on the exit of NASCAR 4 is going to hurt him just a little bit. Let's see though, as Malcolm Foster comes to the line, he is going to be able to improve there with a 209.5, but it doesn't look like that's going to move him up or down the field at all.
It would have moved him up to P11 actually, but he must have gotten an off track, so that's disappointing for Malcolm Foster. He got the full effect of the draft, but just threw it away with an incident point somehow, and he will be starting basically all the way at the back of the field. The last row of the grid, currently Rodrigo Michelin and Sylvain Gallant. He's not going to improve here. He might improve, but he's not going to improve too much. He's got no help, does Rodrigo. He's talking to somebody on Discord. He's just waiting for this qualifying session to end. The back of the field might not be the worst possible place to start here. Will he improve at the line? Doesn't look like he's going to track to improve. No, he'll start 19th. He'll be on the last row for the start here.
Yes, he will, and that is going to round up our 20-minute qualifying session here at Daytona International Speedway, and that means we are ready to get rolling for the 35-minute race. So let's go ahead and run you through that qualifying order. It is Mark Kalin up on front in a car ramrod back lockdown of the front row with his teammate Bradley Holly to his outside. Ryan Kings will start off in 3rd, followed by Kevin Berquist with Ian Cabana and Kelly Greenhoe in row 3 behind them. Row 4, it's going to be Andrew Sharp and Charles Sumner with Michael Chase and David Van Roy in 10th place. Patrick Cowgill will be to the inside of the following row with Austin Bartlett Chase behind him. In 13th, it's going to be Corey Precker, followed by the newcomer there, Derek Putnam, into the field. Good run there for his first time out. Dan Fendick will be lining up in 15th with Christopher Grimes in 16th. Malcolm Foster will be 17th, followed by Jeffrey Smith in 18th, and Rodrigo Michelin and Sylvain Gallant will round out your 20-car field here at Daytona. Joey, you've got to get this start right. You've got to absolutely nail it. But at the same time, you've got to be very, very careful. We have seen plenty of kerfluffles going down into turn 1. You've got to be a little bit careful on the brakes and not too over-eager getting down into that first corner.
And that's going to be the tough part of the race for the entirety of the race. It is a road course pack race in the truest sense. You're going to be stuck together with a full pack of drivers for the entire race, and with differences in braking points, with differences in braking capabilities, with differences in lines, you really need to give the drivers in front and behind of you as much room as humanly possible, because if you can survive to the end, it is well and truly anybody's game, but you've got to make it to the end to win, as we always say.
Yes, you do. And one other added wrinkle here for these drivers. It is a standing start on the tri-oval, and that could present a little bit of slipping and sliding here for these drivers. There we see Bergquist taking his place on the field now, waiting for your pole sitter, Mark Kalin, the last one to grid up here at Daytona International Speedway to get us started. Mark Kalin just popping over into our YouTube chat and giving us a big woo! So I think the number 62 is pretty excited about being able to start out in pole position.
He definitely is, but if I had to pick one driver to win this race, remember back to the first MX-5 Cup race in real life this year at Daytona, won from 12th place.
Michael, that would mean Austin Bartlett Chase has got a chance here as we wait for the lights to come on. 4 lights, 5 lights, and there goes the green. We are racing in Daytona. A little bit of that slippage we talked about there for Ryan King's not the best getaway, but it is a nearly flawless getaway up front for Mark Kalin and Bradley Holly. The field looks pretty 2x2 though as they go down into that tricky braking zone that is the first corner. Very, very good getaway there for Kalin, and that's going to be Ryan King's that immediately starts to push the issue a little bit. Kalin goes wide on the exit of turn 1. That's going to open up the door for Ryan King's. Ryan King's up 2 at the opening stages of the race, and he's going to lead going down into the International Horseshoe.
Kalin just too late on the brakes into turn 1. Might have got a little bit of wheel hop or something, but that looked like some of the starts at some of the NASCAR truck races at this track. Just a little bit too deep, not quite used to the braking zone at the race start. And Kalin loses the lead, but he's not losing Ryan King's. The entire field here, the entire field of 20 is in line here. So it was not a great start by Mark Kalin, but that might not be a bad thing. He'll have some of the draft from Ryan King's here. He'll be able to save a little bit of fuel as Ryan King's goes deep as well. Seems to be bad luck to be in the lead of this race.
It certainly does, but Mark Kalin looking very, very squirrely there on the exit of the Western Horseshoe, just trying to get that car back under him, and now Bradley Holly's going to be directly behind them, and this is where I'm going to be watching for the Team Car Ram Roundabout drivers, as they do have a lot of Cup and truck experience, and they are 2 of the most experienced bump drafters in the field, so watch for that bump draft to come into play. There's the hook up there, right there for Bradley Holly, giving a little bit of a hey, how you doing to the back of his teammate Mark Kalin, and they're going to get a little bit of a push down the back straightaway.
And we had this same style of racing at the opening round this season at the Monza Junior course, and who was 1 and 2 in that race? Who dominated all the way? It was Kalin and Holly, so they are fierce competitors in this style of racing. Like you said, they've got so much experience in NASCAR racing, in oval racing, in restrictor plate racing, and you can already see Holly's all the way back to the back of Mark Kalin, doing a little bit of tandem drafting, and they're going to go to the lead already. They're not content to save fuel.
No, they want to push their way back by. Woo, big wiggle there as they come up out of NASCAR 4. And now we're going to be Noah's Ark in terms of that bump draft. Ryan Kings and Kelly Greenhoe hooking up. Mark Kalin and Bradley Holly. It's going to be those 2 drivers down to the inside. The 43 trying to be a little bit later on the binders as they dive down through the corner. Kalin looks like he's going to be able to hold it, but runs a little bit close there. Has to check himself up. Kelly Greenhoe now trying to be able to get back by as they work their way through the S's.
I'm starting to have flashbacks to like NASCAR in about 2010. We just saw 3 pairs of teammates tandem drafting into turn 1 in Miatas, which is just an absolutely hilarious sight, but it just tells you that you need a buddy here. You're going to need a teammate to be at your full potential here. And Kings and Greenhoe, they found each other. They found the lead. Kalin and Holly have found each other. Bergquist and Cabana have found each other. It's great to have a buddy right now.
Yes, it is two, almost three wide there in the mid-pack as drivers continue to shuffle themselves around there a little bit. Charles Sumner trying to hold on. Corey Brecker, Jeffrey Smith, and Malcolm Foster. A little bit of a look there down to the inside for Mark Kalin up in front of the field as he tries to go through side by side between Van Roy and Ian Cabana as they get themselves out there. We're going to be Noah's Ark on the exit of the corner as that's Bartlett Chase and Patrick Cowgill behind them.
Austin Bartlett Chase, my initial prediction for the win. Tyler Gonzalez won the first real MX-5 Cup of the race of the year from 12th on the grid. Bartlett Chase started 12th on the grid. He was already up to 8th, fallen to 9th now, but he's with the pack and he wants his first win here. But we're starting to see a little bit of a change, a little bit of a break between Bergquist and Cabana. Funny enough, the two teammates have lost each other and
contact.
I'm so sorry, Austin Bartlett Chase. That is my fault.
And that is going to be David Van Roy also taken off there, and it looks like the 24 of Andrew Sharp having a problem. Corey Brecker as well. It is an absolute parking lot down there on the bus stop. Let's go ahead and check out that replay as we come down through the corner. Van Roy with just a little bit much overspeed, and that's going to collect Austin Bartlett Chase. It looks like there that there was more contact in the back between the 24 of Andrew Sharp and Corey Brecker, and those two spread around as we've got a little bit of craziness going on here for the lead.
Craziness all through the field here. Kalin is aggressive here. He's trying to break up the Kings and Greenhoe duo here. Very aggressively pushing into turn one. He's going to make the move on Kings here. He's going to split the two teammates if he's able to get by Kings, but Ryan's not giving up. He's going to go back to the inside. Kalin's going to overcook it again, and Kings does get back to second. But Kalin's trying very, very hard here. He's oversteering all over the place, understeering there out of the horseshoe as well. But these two car ram Rodaback drivers, both from the Wadaback side of that team, they really want to break up this Greenhoe Kings thing up here, and Kalin is giving it everything here, even though there's 30 minutes left in the race.
Yes, indeed, as we ride on board with the fourth place car there of Bradley Holly holding in behind his teammate. He also has a little bit of company there behind him in the form of the number 764 of Kevin Bergquist, who's holding on to the back. You see those cars start to fan out there a little bit, just trying to carry momentum up onto NASCAR 1 as they go, and now they're all going to slot themselves into line. Kelly Greenhoe with about 0.5 of a second of an advantage over his teammate Ryan Kings, and now it's just all the battle for the draft here.
See if Holly can get back to the back of Kalin. They were working together on the opening lap. Are they going to work together again here and try and jump Greenhoe and Kings? Fuel saving has been a very big part of strategy in this series over the past couple of weeks, and I have to imagine it's also a part of this race with the amount of time you spend in a straight line, essentially at full throttle. You can save a lot of fuel. You can do a lot of fuel saving, but are Holly and Kalin content to fuel save, or do they want to lead this train? So far, it's looked like Kalin wants to lead the train, which is not what I would have expected.
I'm not entirely surprised. I am entirely surprised by that as well, but whoo, that got a little bit hairy there as now here comes Holly with a full head of steam coming up to the outside. Almost a little bit of contact. We're almost looking like it's going to be 3 wide coming down now into turn 1. Who is going to back out of this? Is Holly going to back down from the outside? Looks like he takes a wider line there down through the corner, trying to see what he is going to be able to do. Not wanting to be too aggressive there with his teammate Mark Kalin, but they're going to continue to be side by side down through the S's. That battle not abating at all. Kalin going to have the unpreferred line there, and he indeed is going to slot back into it as we've got almost a little bit of a change there up front. Ryan King's trying to take a little bit of advantage on his teammate of Kelly Greenhoe. Now Kevin Bergquist thought about getting involved there for a second on the back of Mark Kalin, but he's not going to have any pull.
There's 14 laps left in the race, guys. I don't think we need to be going 3 wide across the start-finish line this early, but Holly wanted the lead. The outside did not work, and that was worrying. When Kalin was pushing his way forward, Kings and Greenhoe and Kalin, they all almost came together. It was Kings, I believe, not holding his line, or maybe it was Kalin. I don't know whose fault it was, but these guys need to be a little bit more careful. Give each other a little bit of room. You don't want to take each other out on a straight. That would be the worst possible scenario. And Kalin's lost the back of those the 2 teammates and his teammate Holly just a little bit. So we'll see if Holly goes back and acts as a tow anchor for Kalin to get back up there. But the second pack now is 5 seconds behind Ian Cabana, and they got to do a lot of work if they want to catch up to the top 6.
Yes, they do, but Bradley Holly doing a little bit of work here. He's going to try to go to the inside there of the bus stop, but he's going to get forced off to the inside. That for sure is going to be a slowdown penalty for Bradley Holly as he backs out of it there a little bit, having to hold himself back. That is not what your points leader wants to have happen, and he's going to be able to find himself slotted back into line. He is going to be 5th, but he is going to be close enough to be able to hold on. Kalin may be having a little bit of a peek here to the outside of Ryan Kings and Kelly Greenhoe. There's a little bit of a bump there between those two drivers as it looks like overspeed is going to favor Mark Kalin. He's going to put himself up into the lead. Bergquist trying to give him a little bit of a hey, how you doing bump draft as they cross over the start-finish line with 26 minutes to go here in this race. Now diving down into the first corner. Careful, careful. We've seen some drivers getting a little bit sideways. And again, Kalin carries too much speed going down into turn 1, and he's going to have to resort back into 3rd.
And this is exactly what we talked about at the start of the race, the differences in braking points, the difference in braking distances. I think every one of these top 6 drivers braked at a different point into turn 1. Luckily, they were in an order where it all worked out. It seemed like the driver up front, Kelly Greenhoe, braked the latest and everybody else braked a little bit earlier. But if that switches around, you really need to be careful that you don't ram into the back of the driver in front, because if you get front end damage here, you are going to be killed with the amount of straight line speed we have, the amount of straight lines we have here. But all of them working it out so far, but there's still 25 minutes and they've got to keep everything clean.
And Kalin again looking very, very aggressive there on the exit of the Western Horseshoe, trying to see if he can get that power down, but the car getting very squirrely for him, not quite working out the way he would have liked it to, but he's now going to be able to hook up on the back there of Ryan Kings. I've got to think he may have a little bit of a run here going down into the bus stop, and what scares me a little bit to that point, Joey, is the fact that we're only 10 minutes down in this race. There's still plenty of time left to go, and these drivers are fighting tooth and nail.
They are fighting tooth and nail, and I keep saying it, it's a surprise that this is happening this early. It's a surprise that everybody wants to lead, and that makes me wonder if fuel strategy isn't going to be as much of a thing as it's been in other weeks. I wonder if everybody's just kind of consigned to the fact that the lap is so long that everybody's going to have to pit in on exactly the same lap, so the differences in fuel won't be big enough to do what Greenhoe and Kings did last week and jump the entire field. So I think that might be why everyone's being so aggressive here, as Bergquist almost turns Kalin through the banking. Kalin is going to try and go for the lead again. He's not saving fuel. He wants the lead. He hasn't gotten it yet, though.
That's a very, very good point about fuel saving, that because of the long lap here, that it may limit that fuel window, and that could be what's seeing that thrown out the window. Could also just be a situation where these drivers are having the time of their life and they don't want to let it go. And I'll tell you what, it's keeping us entertained up here in the booth. Kalin again running a wider line, though, down through turn 1, not able to get the move done on Ryan Kings, and it's still going to be those 2 Gulf livery drivers up in the front of the field being able to pull themselves away a little bit.
It is very relatable to want to race in a pack race like this. It's not fun running in line, saving fuel, running strategy, whatever. At Daytona, in real life, you run in a single file line for the first 199 laps and then you race in the final one. No, I don't like doing that. I like racing the whole way through, and so do these guys, evidently, and it is putting on a good show, but it's also not helping Cowgill and Chase and Smith and Grimes and all these guys back here in the second pack. It's a 6-car race for the win, and then it's a 14-car race for everything else.
Yeah, it is. That gap growing out to about 6 seconds as they run. And, you know, normally we talk about battling up at the front of the field and how that can be a real detriment to you, pull you back into the clutches of the drivers behind you. Well, it looks like they're flying in the face of convention out here today, and those drivers up at the front really pushing the limits here, and they just continue to grow that gap. But it looks like we may have a little bit of a swap here for the lead, as indeed it seems like that was a little bit of team tactics coming into play. Ryan Kings getting by Kelly Greenhoe.
And Greenhoe has no reason to fight his teammate there, so that was very smart to just get back in line, keep working together, try and push each other a little bit further away from Holly and from Kalin and from Bergquist. As these guys continue to fight, I'm looking back to 6th place Ian Cabana as well. He's in danger of losing these guys, but luckily they've been fighting so much into turn 1 that I don't think Cabana will lose them. But here goes Kings to the bottom, and then Greenhoe to the outside. Kalin's going to push Kings to the bottom. Bergquist is going to decide where to go. Holly's going to go to the top, and we do have all 6 cars packed up again into turn 1. But watch the differences between Greenhoe and Kalin under braking here. Kalin very late in the brakes, but he washes out wide, doesn't get into the back of Greenhoe. This is crazy stuff into turn 1 every single lap, and Holly's the biggest loser this time. He falls to the back in 6th, but everybody's still together again, and somehow this impenetrable armada of mini horse racing drivers still can't be broken by Mark Kalin.
Yeah, indeed, and Kalin actually jumping over the radio there a second ago to apologize, having a little bit of contact down into the braking zone with Kelly Greenhoe, and that really goes to show you just the professionalism and respect that these drivers have for one another. They are battling tooth and nail, but anything that can be construed a little bit as a sideways move necessarily, definitely being apologized for immediately. It's one of the reasons why we love covering the Precision Racing League here on RaceSpotTV. These are some of the most respectful drivers in all of iRacing.
I think Robin Miller once said hate is good for racing, but I think a lack of hate is also good for racing, and these guys are being very, very respectful and very, very aggressive. But I do have to think about last week at Summit Point. Kalin and Holly, they came together while fighting for the podium last week at Summit Point, but they have put that aside. They're both teammates, they're both friends, and they have obviously put that beside themselves, and they are working together again this week, as are the 2 teammates up front, and Greenhoe is still holding on to this lead. Kings isn't trying to go back for the lead, I don't think, and he doesn't need to. He can stick behind for the next 20 minutes and pop out to the line as long as nobody else jumps him.
Well, how many times have we seen that of this race being decided at a run to the line? There it looks like a little bit of team strategy, though. Kelly Greenhoe moving up to the outside lane, and that's going to allow for his teammate Ryan Kings to be able to pull ahead, and he will be the one to lead here on the end of lap 7. Dive down for the pits. That's Kalin and Holly.
This is early. I did not expect this to happen this early. Maybe fuel strategy is going to be a thing after all, but Kings and Greenhoe, that was fantastic what they did. It was really smart that they've been switching every lap. They've been trying to maximize the amount of draft they're giving each other, maximize the speed instead of bump drafting. They're doing it that way, and it was working out really well for him. And Kalin misses his pit stall. That's going to put him behind his teammate, and that could lose him the draft with only those couple of tenths he overstepped.
Yes, it very well could, and I think there was a driver there. I'm not sure entirely who that was, but it looked like he may have missed his pit stall entirely and just almost served a drive-through penalty, as it were. Holly on his way. Kalin, thankfully, close enough behind Holly. It doesn't look like he is going to lose the draft. He'll certainly lose some time, but he is not going to fully lose the draft off of his teammate there in the 184.
Oh, Kalin almost put it in the wall on pit exit. It's a very difficult pit exit here, but he gets away with it. He gets out. Him and Holly both safe. I would expect Holly to maybe back it up just a little bit to get his teammate back with him so they can tandem with each other, push each other a little bit, jump each other a little bit, mini horse style. I don't know what they're going to do, but now we wait for the 2 leaders to come in. Now we wait for Bergquist to come in. I assume he'll follow him. I assume his teammate Cabana will follow him, but it's a waiting game here, and it's halfway in the race, so I wouldn't be surprised to see these guys come in this time.
I wouldn't either, but we'll have to see how the varying strategy plays itself out. By the way, in terms of Ian Cabana, he has fallen off the back of the train right there, courtesy of Holly and Kalin coming down pit lane. He finds himself about 1.7 seconds behind his teammate of Kevin Bergquist, and that is not where you want to be. That effective draft range that we talk about, normally about 1 second around here, and that is not what it is. Another little swapping of position there for Kings and Greenhoe up front.
Now, what does Bergquist do? It's been Kalin leading the charge to break up these 2 teammates for the majority of the race, but now it's Bergquist. He wants a peek at the lead. Is he going to make it 3 wide like Bradley Holly did? He's not going to be able to, because Greenhoe and Kings, both of them bring it down pit road, as does Bergquist. They all get it slowed down. Well done. I think Ian Cabana's coming down too.
Yes, he is. We've got to wait a whopping 8.5 seconds to see if anybody else is going to be coming down pit lane, as it looks like this secondary pack of Jeffrey Smith, Michael Chase, Christopher Grimes, and Derek Putnam, not going to opt to come down pit lane. But we will be able to see what this battle will be. This now becomes the battle for the lead as Michael Chase leads the way there, coming down out of the tandem and making it work. Waiting to see the pit exit times here for the rest of the drivers as we wait for Kings, Berquist, Cabana, and Greenhoe to make their way back out.
These guys were so many seconds behind the lead pack that they're going to need something insane to happen to jump into the lead fight. But look at this. Something insane has happened to the pits. Berquist has jumped Kings and Greenhoe, so he's going to lead this secondary pack. Where's Holly and Kalin? There they are up ahead. So Holly and Kalin have completely jumped this 4-car pack, and Berquist is now going to have to lead the charge to chase him down.
Yes, they are, and that gap, as it starts to sort itself out a little bit here, looks like it's going to stabilize at about 2 seconds, so that is positively massive, and that is going to be outside of that effective draft range, as we talked about. The early pit stop here, as one old commentary buddy of mine used to say, an early peel and a late reveal, certainly looking the way to go here for the team Ram Rodaback drivers.
If you missed the race at Monza a couple weeks ago, you didn't miss anything, because we just saw exactly the same thing happen, and I think we're going to see exactly the same thing happen to the end of the race. Now that Kalin and Holly have separated themselves, they just need to work together. They need to stick together, make sure Berquist and the rest of the gang don't catch back up to them, and then they can decide it amongst themselves in the last 2 laps or so. But right now, the only thing that they're thinking about is extending the gap to Berquist. They're making sure he has no shot. They want it to be only them two with a chance for the win.
Yes, they do, as we check back in on the battle for the lead right now. Chase, Smith, Putnam, and Grimes running around here. Looks like Smith is going to close up behind Michael Chase, give him a little bit of a bump draft. Got to be careful here in the back for Derek Putnam. You never want to be the one pushing the pusher as they come down now. Looks like a little bit of a fade, and indeed 3 of the cars are going to come down pit lane, leaving Jeffrey Smith all by his lonesome out on the track.
I sure hope Jeffrey can make it around another lap. That's a lot of miles. It's another 2 full minutes he's got to go around the track. He might have, I don't know if he saved the fuel, but he clearly thinks he has. So Jeffrey Smith gonna get a lap led, gonna get 1 more lap around, put a little bit less fuel in the car. I don't know what's gonna happen there, but I do know what's gonna happen with these guys. Holly is just pushing Kalin. They're extending the gap. It's now a 1.5 seconds over Berquist, which is not as big as they would want, but it is putting Berquist out of draft range. They've got more work to do, though, and they're going to continue doing this for 14 more minutes.
Well, and it looks like they're behind them that Kevin Berquist didn't put up too much of a fight on letting Ryan Kings on out and by him. There you can see the second part of that train. But here's the question I want to pose to you, Joey. We've seen 2 different strategies when it comes to the draft around here. We've seen the bump drafting from Kalin and Holly, and then we've also seen the sort of tandem leapfrogging back and forth between the likes of Kings and Greenhoe. Which is going to be the way to do it? What is going to be the fastest way to get 2 cars around this circuit?
Well, that is a question that I don't think I can answer because they're doing 2 different things, but I would think I have not driven in a pack in these cars in a while. I don't know if they're hitting the limiter down the long straights, so if they are doing that pushing, you're just going to hit the limiter. You're not going to be able to go that much faster with the draft. I don't know which one's going to work, but I do know that Holly has actually lost a lot of time. You saw him going extremely wide in turn 1. He lost a ton of time, and Kings is now within a second of him. Whatever Holly and Kalin have done, they thought bump drafting was the way to go, but Holly threw it all away at turn 1, and Kings is going to catch him, I think.
I think you're right. This is about to be at least a 3-car fight back up for the battle for the lead. Maybe even a 4 or 5, 6-car fight as they run, as Kelly Greenhoe is within draft range in the back of this pack. It looks like Ian Cabana still holding back at about 1.5 seconds. I can report, by the way, that Jeffrey Smith was able to make it all the way back around and back down pit lane, so no problems there for the 719, but he will surely find himself a little bit farther down in the field. Now, as we watch the concentration from Bradley Holly, giving that nice little pump draft to his teammate Mark Kalin up ahead of him.
Just pushing him as fast as he possibly can, but these Miatas are not quite as fast as you might want, and Ryan Kings is to the back of these 2. It is not a 2-car battle anymore. They tried their best, but it just didn't work. Oh, but he turns Kalin. Holly turns his teammate. And that's it. That's how you end that battle, and that's how Ryan Kings gets the lead back. The tandem, the pushing, the working together, it's all ended in disaster.
Oh my goodness, just a little bit too much steer. I'm not sure if that was a problem from Holly or if that was a problem from Kalin, but one way or another, absolutely ending in tears here for the car Ram Rodaback drivers. And now this is a whole different ball game. Ryan Kings up front to the tune of about 9.5 tenths of a second. Bradley Holly behind him. Kevin Berquist, Kelly Greenhoe, and Ian Cabana all trying to run in. It's now the 4 as Cabana's really fallen off the back with Mark Kalin.
And that leaves only one pair of teammates with Greenhoe and King. So if Greenhoe can get by Berquist and get by Holly, but let's take a look at what happened with Holly and Kalin here. It didn't look like anything especially bad, but just through the tri-oval, Holly just ended up pushing him at a bad angle, and it turned Kalin. I don't think either of them did anything wrong there. It was just the worst possible combination of things. We'll ride on board with Kalin. Yeah, he's driving in a straight line, as straight of a line as you can through the tri-oval, and it just turns him.
Yeah, the car just broke away on him. I think that was a little bit of a combination of being slightly off center there for Bradley Holly and then just putting in a little bit of steering wheel. You can see sort of almost a slow, lazy spin there for the 62 as it starts to go around. Yeah, and then up onto 2 wheels through the grass. Gotta say, Kalin is very, very lucky that he was able to recover it and be able to keep on going in 6th place. His day not completely done and dusted. But let's give you that reset back up at the front of the field. It is now a 4-car breakaway between Kings, Holly, Berquist, and Greenhoe. There you can see those 4 cars there. Greenhoe looking like he's losing a little bit of time there in the back of the picture. Holly starting to go on a little bit. Oh, what a great shot from our director there, Hugo Luis, seeing just how close that was for Mark Kalin.
Looked like Terry Grant when he puts it on 2 wheels of the Goodwood Festival of Speed, but Kalin, unfortunately, not quite as deliberate. Holly actually retakes the lead from Ryan Kings, so he is content to lead this field. He doesn't feel too bad about what happened. He still wants to win, and he has passed Kings, he's passed Berquist, he's passed Greenhoe. He's going to lead this train, but again, those 2 teammates, I see those 2 same liveried cars, and they're going to find each other, and they're going to start working together very soon here. I wonder if Kings might actually drop back behind Berquist at some point just to meet up with his teammates so they can tandem together and move forward, but I don't think they can afford that because they've got to stick with Holly, and I think Greenhoe's just going to have to get by Berquist the natural way, and then he can start working with Kings.
Yeah, I've got to think there that lifting off at any point over the course of this last about 9.5 minutes could be a little bit of a death knell for these drivers. Not what you want to be doing at all. So there you see a little bit of a move there in the back for Kelly Greenhoe, trying to see if he's got anything to be said going down into the final corner of the infield. Nice long, wide line there for Bradley Holly, trying to maximize that speed around the corner.
Unfortunately, you cannot maximize the speed enough to hold back Ryan Kings when he's within a second of you. So here comes Kings. He's going to jump Holly here, I think. I don't think he's going to be too worried about putting 2 cars between him and his teammate. And yeah, Holly he knows what's coming. He is consigned to his fate, and Ryan Kings gets to the inside. He's going to take the lead now. And Greenhoe, again, not close enough to Berquist to actually make a move. He's got to figure out a way to get closer because he seems to be consigned to 4th right now, and there's not going to be any working between the teammates when they're in 1st and 4th, 2 halves of the sandwich. And Holly, a great exit from the bus stop. He's going to try and go back to the lead as well. So I can't predict anything that's going to happen up here.
It's absolute insanity, but Holly there driving the car down the track a little bit. I like that running down the hill, as it were. Now comes the move from Kelly Greenhoe in the back. He's got a great bit of overspeed, and we're going to be 3 wide coming across the line with about 8 minutes to go here at Daytona in the MX-5 Cup Series. Who is going to be the latest of the late breakers going down into the corner? Kevin Berquist just holding on behind, hoping there's no calamity in front of him. A little bit of sideways move there for Ryan Kings, but he's able to keep it together, and Holly back up into the lead. Kelly Greenhoe behind him. No, it's not done yet. Greenhoe's keeping fighting, and that's going to be Greenhoe down to the preferred line, coming down into the International Horseshoe. Oh, a little bit of contact, and that's going to be Kings out into the grass.
And And Kings is out of the fight for the win. I did not see if there was contact or if he just clipped the grass. We'll have to take a look at the replay, but that's going to be heartbreaking for Ryan Kings. Again, shades of Monza when he lost the, no contact whatsoever. Kings just overspeed a little bit too far to the left there and just clips the grass and throws it all away. There he goes, just way too late in the brakes. Didn't get into the back of Holly because he did steer off to the left and throw himself into the grass, but he's sacrificed himself there, and he's going to be fighting for fourth now with Ian Cabana. And now it's a 3-car fight. We're losing guys every couple of laps, but we've got 3 survivors left.
So back at the Christie, and then there were 3 as we get down here into the closing stages. 7 minutes left to go here at Daytona. Greenhoe, Holly, and Bergquist. It is now going to be a battle of waiting to see who is going to be able to take this draft and who is going to be able to minimize those mistakes, as we have seen so many little problems here showing up for these drivers. Good run for Bradley Holly. He's going to have a half-hearted look down to the inside, but he's not going to send it going down into the bus stop. Discretion proving the better part of valor there for the 184.
We'll see if Holly goes back for the lead here. I think he likely will. That's what he's done every lap, but Bergquist isn't going to be close enough to make it 3 wide. I don't think he's going to get a double draft, but he just has not been fast enough down these straights. He hasn't been close enough down these straights to actually go for a move, but now Holly actually lifts. He doesn't go for the move on Greenhoe, and that's exactly what Bergquist needed to close up to the back, so he's proven me wrong. If he wants to go for the move, he can make it 3 wide, but no, for once, the drivers are actually happy to go one by one here. That's very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting indeed, as there we see that's going to be Bradley Holly taking a little bit of a wider line going down into turn 1, trying to maximize that momentum, but he's not really able to diamond off the corner, runs out. Let's go back and check out back here this battle right now for P7. Michael Chase leading the way. This is pretty incredible. Smith, Cowgill, Chase, and Sumner all running down into the corner, Noah's Ark style. Who's going to be able to get themselves out ahead?
I thought these guys might actually be able to catch Mark Kalin now that he was all on his own, but no, they've been too busy fighting. They've been slowing each other down, which is great for Kalin. He's able to keep his 6th. That's going to be at least a little bit of solace in his championship run, but these guys are fighting for absolutely everything for P7 here. And remember, Jeffrey Smith, he was the driver who went those extra 2 laps. He was also the driver who started 18th on the grid, I think. So it has been a fantastic day for Jeffrey Smith, up 11 spots, and he's probably got the lightest load of fuel in that car as well.
Probably does. A fantastic run for the 719, and whoa, as that's a little bit of commentator's curse. They are getting a little bit squirrely coming out of the International Horseshoe, but he's able to keep that purple machine pointed the right direction, and no problem there. Excuse me, that was the Western Horseshoe that he had that problem in, but he is going to be up into the lead there of this battle. This once again for 7th. Here's a little bit of a peek this way, and that for Bradley Holly for the lead of the race as they get going. Now they're going to have a little bit of an interesting conundrum up ahead of them. Malcolm Foster in 19th currently runs about 5 seconds in front of him, and that could throw a wrench into the order here of your leaders.
It depends on when they catch him. If Kelly Greenhoe's hoping that they catch him at enough of a time that he can steal some of the draft, Bradley Holly's hoping that they catch him in the corners, in the infield, and just slows Kelly Greenhoe down just enough to pack everybody together. But I can't see Malcolm Foster in this shot here, so I don't think they're going to catch him in the next 4 minutes. There's only 2 laps to go, so I think Malcolm Foster will be on the lead lap. He'll be able to finish on the lead lap, but Kelly Greenhoe, Bradley Holly, Kevin Bergquist, it's a 3-way fight for the win. There's only 1 more lap to go after this one ends. And how can Bergquist take it? How can Holly take it? How can Kelly Greenhoe hang on? I don't have answers to any of those questions, and I wouldn't count out Ryan Kings to win this race if these guys all come to blows either.
Very, very good point. We've seen some pretty spectacular fireworks coming across the line, and Kings may be able to pick up the pieces. We jump back, though, to that battle for 7th there, as it looks like the number 31 of Patrick Cowgill able to send a little bit of a move down to the inside of Michael Chase. Charles Sumner holding on there behind as well. These cars looking a little bit squirrely under braking, going down into the International Horseshoe. The 31 of Cowgill trying to press his advantage a little bit, going down into the kink. You've got to be very, very aggressive to try to do anything down into this infield section, but Cowgill, I think, wants these positions if at all possible.
Cowgill not close enough, though. Again, he is not ever close enough to actually make the move in the infield here, but that might actually be a good thing, as there goes Jeffrey Smith. He was close to going off of that corner on the last lap, and again, he's just overstepped the limit just that little bit, clipped the grass, and there goes Patrick Cowgill through. I said he wasn't close enough, but you're always close enough when the driver in front throws it into the grass, and now Jeffrey Smith is going to be on offense on this train. He wants 7th back. He'll probably be able to take it if he can do this right.
Yes, he will. And speaking of that offense, it is now go time for Bradley Holly as the clock begins to tick down here closer and closer, running to the white flag. About 3.5 seconds up the road there to Malcolm Foster. I think you were right in that assessment, Joey, that they are not going to be able to catch him by the time they get around. Right on board with the 64 Cranky No Brakes driver, Cranky Esports driver, rather, of Kevin Bergquist, trying to see if he's going to have anything. Pokes his nose outside there a little bit of a bump draft from Bradley Holly. Now they're all going to streak into line as Barney the flagman waves the white flag. 1 lap to go here at Daytona.
Keep all your cards close to your chest. That's what all the top 3 did there. They didn't peek out. They didn't try and simulate the move they're going to do coming to the line. They're going to have to wait a couple more corners for that actually to happen. Kevin Bergquist might be in the best position here. If Holly and Greenhoe get side by side, they poke a hole in the air, Bergquist can get around all of them, but Greenhoe is just a sitting duck. I don't know, if I was up front, I would consider dropping back, losing this position, and just going for the draft to retake the lead, but that is always extremely dangerous to do, and that almost always backfires. So Kelly Greenhoe is probably not going to even try that, but he's going to have to hope and pray that Bradley Holly and Kevin Bergquist can't find a way by him on the straight.
Well, that does come into the problem here of where you want to be when you come out of the bus stop here. We've seen it time and time again. Drivers working the math backwards from that last corner, trying to figure out where they want to be. Looks like Holly may have backed himself up there just a little bit. Call it 0.5 of a second there in between himself and the leader of Kelly Greenhoe. Now the draft comes into effect. Holly, you can see him glancing down there at his gauges, pushing his mind forward. Now he needs to get a good run out of the bus stop, and it's going to be the chase to the line coming down here for the Precision Racing League's MX-5 Cup Series.
Side by side of the bus stop hasn't worked out earlier in the race, and they're not going to go side by side through the bus stop. It's going to be 1 by 1 by 1, and now it's a waiting game. Who's timed the draft best? Is it Bergquist or Holly, or can Greenhoe beat them all?
Well, here we go. That is going to be Kelly Greenhoe down there to the inside, taking the apron up until the last minute, trying to narrow up that line. Bradley Holly going to run down the hill a little bit. Bergquist may have to blunt his momentum ever so slightly. Here it comes. The run down to the line. Bergquist looks high. That's going to be Holly. Slots out, throws a little bit of a block. He's got the momentum. Bergquist tries to go in between. A little bit of contact. A little bit of more contact. Holly looking like he's got the advantage. Comes home second. Kevin Bergquist has to settle for third.
I think Bergquist made his move just a little bit too early, and that allowed Holly to close up to Greenhoe and then close that hole completely. Well done to all of them for keeping that point in a straight line. We've got another photo finish here. Cowgill and Smith to the line. Cowgill is going to beat Smith to P7. Well done, Patrick Cowgill, and well done, Jeffrey Smith, for bringing it all the way up the field in 8th. And then last car in the top 10 is going to be Charles Sumner, and the battles rage on. Poor old Austin Bartlett Chase. Commentators cursed him starting 12th. He had a shot at the win, but a recovery to 13th. Pretty decent, and the rest of the field comes on through.
Yes, they do a good run there for everybody, and this is that final run to the line that we were hooting and hollering about. You can see the contact there coming into one another, and a good job for the drivers to keep it as clean as possible. Holly almost losing it there, but just able to take victory by 62 thousandths of a second. Kevin Bergquist 43 thousandths of a second behind Kelly Greenhoe. You really can't get much closer than that.
I think you literally can't get any closer than that. It was incredible, and just looking at the replay, you can think about 5,000 other different possibilities. You can say, this is what Bergquist could have done if he was going to win the race. This is what Kelly Greenhoe should have done if he wanted to win the race. But it's millisecond, it's split-second thinking, and you got to make your decisions, and sometimes they don't work out, but they all worked out for Bradley Holly.
Yes, they did. Let's go ahead and run you through that final finishing order here at Daytona. As we said and screamed about, Bradley Holly taking victory ahead of Kelly Greenhoe and Kevin Berquist. It was Ryan Kings and Ian Cabana behind them, and Mark Kalin back in 6th after a run at the front of the field earlier on. Patrick Cowgill was able to lead that second train that we were following ahead of Jeffrey Smith and Michael Chase. Charles Sumner came home in P10. Back in 11th, it was Derek Putnam on his first debut in the series, so a good run there for him. Dan Fendick and Corey Precker rounds out your top 13. Andrew Sharp was 14th, followed by Rodrigo Michelin with Sylvian Gallant, Christopher Grimes, and Austin Bartlett Chase, the last drivers to finish on the lead lap. Malcolm Foster and David Van Roy, both a lap down on the day. And my goodness gracious, you could not really have a better run to the line there. And we've got our winner, Bradley Holly, joining us here in the interview booth. And Bradley, I've got to ask you, how many laps back were you planning that move?
Pretty much from the start. With how much the draft meant in this race, that it was whatever cars were behind the leader out of the bus stop, and it was all about timing. That was definitely a little cat and mouse game towards the end.
Well, you certainly played it well. Was there a little bit of heart and mouth moment? We saw some of the contact there between you and Greenhoe and Berquist, and it looks like you got pretty sideways coming to the line.
Yeah, I was definitely trying to make it to where Berquist couldn't really take advantage of it, just leaving just enough room to where he thought about it and tried to move me out of the move me up a little bit, which can't be mad about that. I know he's trying to get the win tonight too, so it was definitely it was basically a little bit of chicken at the end of that race.
It certainly looked that way, and now as we sort of look ahead here, we head to Barcelona next, a very different circuit as it runs. You gonna be putting in the practice for that one, or how do you think it's gonna go?
Oh yeah, definitely. I gotta put in my practice for the trucks for this week first, and then later in the week I will definitely be putting some more laps into the MX-5 just to try to make it as entertaining as possible for the broadcast and try to get another win.
Well, you most certainly made it entertaining for us here today, but Bradley, anybody you'd like to thank for the run today?
I want to thank Mark first off. I don't know what happened in the tri-oval. I've never felt that before. So first off, I want to apologize to Mark for spinning him tonight. Definitely everybody in the PRL, all organizers for putting on a great league. And then you guys for broadcasting us week in, week out. Y'all's broadcasts are absolutely spectacular.
Well, thank you, Bradley. I know I can say from my perspective, y'all make it easy here with races like that, but that was your winner here today, Bradley Holly. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
All right, that was your victor, and that means that, Joey, I believe you have caught up with our second place finisher out there on the trot by just a couple of thousandths of a second. Kelly Greenhoe came home P2.
Yeah, Kelly, I talked about in the last lap how I think you might have been in the worst possible position in the lead on that last lap. What were you thinking when you led that final lap with those two hungry guys? Oh, we've lost Kelly Greenhoe. We'll try and get Kelly back so I can... There we go. Kelly Greenhoe, welcome back. I will...
Can you hear me?
Yep, now we got you.
Yeah, Daytona's a tough one to be in the lead going into that last lap. I could tell with 2 or 3 to go when Bradley started bumping me that he was content wait until the last lap, but it is what it is. I'm not about to fake a mistake to fall behind or anything like that. I'd rather stay ahead and try to hold it off. And then I see Kevin tried to squeak in there. Looked like between us, all of a sudden I heard 3 wide and got like kind of a bump, but it was, I think, him trying to squeeze in. But another great race. Happy to get some points.
Well, you and your teammate Ryan Kings, we saw you two work together to jump the whole field at some point last week. You guys were working together at the start of the race too. You guys kind of got split up at the end there. Did you have a plan to work together as teammates at the end there, and did that fall apart when Ryan threw it off the road?
Yeah, absolutely. Our chemistry's been pretty good the last few races, and that's always the plan. Teamwork, I know it's kind of a singles league with team as like an added bonus, but I'm really enjoying having a teammate to be up there running with. It's really fun. So yeah, we've always planned to work together, and then it's gloves off the last lap or two if we happen to be up there together. I think he said he caught some grass or something. I'll have to watch back on the last couple laps and fell back a little bit, but it's all good. We both got some good points. Another 1-2 would have been sweet, but yeah, like I said, Daytona's tough to hold people off there that last lap.
Next week, we are off to España. We're off to the Barcelona National Circuit. How's your Spanish, and how you're looking forward to that track?
Me llamo Javier. I had 1 year of Spanish in high school. I chose the name Javier for whatever reason. But no, I live in California, so there's a lot of Spanish spoken. I'm not too fluent at all. Barcelona's tricky. I see it's a different layout. It's kind of like a half the track, or kind of half the track. So we'll see what happens. I'll start putting my practice laps in, this coming week, and we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, congrats on your second place finish tonight, and we will see you in En Español, I should say. So that was your second place finisher, Kelly Greenhoe. And looks like next up we've got his teammate Ryan Kings. He's up here in the booth now.
Yes, we do, Ryan. Not exactly the way you wanted to end that race, being a little bit farther back down in the field, but still a good result for the mini horsepower team. And you've got to be walking away with a bit of a smile there with as close as that battle was.
It's somewhat of a smile here. A bit disappointed to not be in the fight at the end, making that mistake of breaking too deep. Had to take to the grass to avoid hitting the back of Holly, but I'm glad that they had a good fight at the end there.
Yeah, good fight indeed. And talk to me a little bit about the strategy that you guys were playing over the course of that. It looked like you and your teammate there, Kelly, just absolutely dominant. How much were you guys in communication there early on in the race, planning out those swaps back and forth?
We were in constant communication the entire time. We were just talking about when to leapfrog, when to bump draft, when we wanted to hold position or switch us around depending on the pace. So I feel like Kelly overall was faster of the two of us today. Qualifying didn't really show that because he gave me a great draft on my qualifying lap. But we were just kind of working the fuel together and also working our pace to try to get as much of a gap as possible.
Well, it obviously didn't have the perfect result for you here today, but as we look ahead to Barcelona running the national circuit, do you have any experience running that shortened layout? How do you think it's going to go?
I've never really done any of the shortened F1 track layouts. I mainly focused on single seaters before this, so all these short layouts are really all unique to me, and I've got to learn them every week.
Well, we wish you luck in your preparation, my friend. Let me ask you, though, anybody you want to thank here for the run today?
Just everyone at the PRL, just all awesome races every single week.
Right, well, Ryan Kings, thank you so very much. And we've got one more interview to sneak on in, and that is going to be Mark Kalin. And Joey Tebben, I believe you've caught up with him.
Mark Kalin, welcome to the booth. 6th place, not what you were looking for, I'm sure. How did it look from your perspective with you and Brad there in the tri-oval?
It just looked like hard racing. Nothing malicious was done there. It looked like maybe he just barely hooked my bumper and got me sideways, and I almost flipped over in the grass, but was lucky not to add insult to injury and get like a black flag with the pit road penalty for unsafe entry and stuff like that. And it just, coming back from last week where Brad got into me, me and him had a talk, and he knew I was not happy with him. So this one, I know it wasn't on purpose. It was, we were trying to work together to stay up front, and it's just one of those things with bump drafting. Sometimes it goes wrong.
Just one of those things in bump drafting, indeed. But you and Brad, with all your experience in the Cup Series and the Truck Series here in the PRL, you guys probably have more oval experience than anybody else in the field, bar, I guess, a couple more of your teammates like Charles Sumner. Do you think that gave you an advantage coming into the race tonight with you two being able to work together like that?
Yes and no, as far as being able to put the bumper to you. It's just tricky with these Mazdas anytime you try to do that because the bumpers don't line up exactly, especially not as well as like a Cup car or a truck. But so I mean, there's always that risk, even in an oval race, that you get a bad bump draft, and unfortunately, it happened tonight. So got to see a first place start. Unfortunately, finished with a P6.
Sounds like everybody else we've talked to tonight, they're all unfamiliar with the layout we're running next week at Barcelona, where we're cutting out the first sector, we're replacing it with a hairpin, but if I remember at Summit Point last week, nobody was later on the brakes than you into the hairpin at turn 1 at Summit Point. So are you feeling good about this strange little layout at Barcelona?
I've always been decent on the brakes, but I've never run this layout either, so it's going to be, green for me as well.
All right, congrats on holding on to a 6th place finish tonight. I'm sure that's a little bit of consolement in your championship run.
It is. It could always be worse. That's just got to keep a positive outlook.
That was your 6th place finisher, Mark Kalin. He was hoping for a little bit more, but he will be back next week. Always a threat, and always will be a threat for the remainder of this season. But DJ, that looks like that's everybody we've got. A lot of different stories, a lot of different scenarios, but nobody happier than Bradley Holly for, let's see, the 100 and somethingth time in the PRL, the 13th time in the MX-5 series. And if I can get the exact number here, I will tell you 110. Win number 110 for Bradley Holly in the Precision Racing League.
Well, we'll have to see if he's able to repeat that feat as we go to territory unknown and uncharted in that Barcelona National Circuit. Going to be a very, very interesting run here for these MX-5s, and we are going to be very excited to bring that to you next Monday, July 25th at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. So make sure to tune in for that. But in the meantime, we're not done here tonight. That's right. We've got the GT4 action ready to fly at you for the GT4 Sprint Series for the Precision Racing League, live from the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari in Italy. It is time for Imola, and we are about 13 and a half minutes down in qualifying right now. Sean Campbell and Owen Watts leading the way from Adam Brockway. But let's go ahead and take a look at the schedule there. As you can see, we are at Imola right now. We get a little bit tight and twistier next time out in the form of Lime Rock and Sandown, and then we head back over to the States for Road America, Brands Hatch, the full circuit, Road Atlanta, and Joey, you and I have been talking about it, ending the season at Fuji. That is one that I am very much looking forward to.
We had a great battle there in the GT3 series. I can only imagine we'll have a great battle there in the GT4 series as well. It's an interesting calendar. We go from North America to Europe, then back to North America, then to Australia, then to America, then back to Europe, then to America, and then to Japan. So I think the people who designed the F1 calendar designed this calendar as well. But it's a diverse schedule. It's a lot of different tracks, and every single track coming up next is going to be pretty interesting and very, very different from each other.
Yes, it is, and we are working on our own championship here, but in this GT4 Sprint Series, it has been on Sean Campbell all the time, leading the way there by about 13 points up, or 23 points rather, up at the front of the field over Michael Diaz. Keith Bonilla there in third in a very, very close battle with Rob Campbell and Adam Brockway. Owen Watts still looking in at that, as well as Carlos Lopez, Devin Lamke, and Darren Rutherford and Blake Zeedy. That battle really for those positions absolutely insane. Up in the team standings, it's Precision Racing Esports leading the way over Hardpoint by Delta Sport, with Western Mass Motorsports there rounding out your top three, only about 3 points ahead of Lunatic Racing. YS Motorsports GT4 sit behind them. Thin Line Racing, 499 Racing, Throttle Thursday, Mean Guy Racing, and Team Mai all the way back down there in 10th. But let's go ahead and bring you right into the live qualifying as they run. Like I said, Sean Campbell doing what Sean Campbell has done best over the course of this season, Joey, and leading the way.
Doing what he has done best and doing what he has never been defeated doing this season or in the PRL ever. This is Sean Campbell's first PRL season, and he has not lost a race in this GT4 series, and he's put 0.6 of a second over Owen Watts. That is just incredible, and that's got to be almost dehumanizing for Owen Watts. I don't even know what you can do when you're that far down in qualifying, but you've just got to hope that you can maybe pounce on Campbell at the start and maybe hope that he can make a mistake that he has not made yet this season.
Well, and this Imola circuit definitely going to be a little bit tighter, a little bit twistier than some of the other tracks that we've gone to in the draft. Not nearly going to be as powerful through the majority of the circuit. Yes, obviously, you're going to be able to get a good tow coming down out of Ravazza 2 and on the run down into Tamburello. But outside of that, this is going to be a lot of follow the leader. This is a track that is notoriously difficult to get past on. And so I think that's going to put a lot of emphasis on the likes of Watts, Brockway, Castillo, Castillo, Vorse, Campbell, Bertillon, Bonilla, all of those drivers farther back down in the field. But really and truly, Joey, if we kind of remove the top three from the equation here, things are incredibly tight in this field.
And that has tended to be the case in the past couple weeks. There's a big three in this series. Sean Campbell, Owen Watts, and Michael Diaz, who is not here this week. But Campbell and Watts are here. Then usually Romero and Brockway and Brian Vorse and Rob Campbell and Jerome Bertillon. They're usually in a sort of second group of their own. And then everybody else just roll the dice and you'll be able to pick who's going to finish in the top 10 from the rest of the field. And it is unpredictable for those last spots in the top 10. Marco Oliveira in 10th right now. He's back in the BMW. I don't believe he was with us last week, so a lot of opportunity for change here, and it's a tight circuit. It's a single groove circuit. It's hard to pass, but the grass is right there. Mistakes happen, and you got to be ready to pounce.
Yes, you do. And let's take a second here to talk a little bit about the disparity among the cars. It's kind of been one of our favorite themes over the course of the season, talking about just how good it's seeing all of these new cars coming in. Well, right now, sitting in your top four as they run, we've got a BMW, a McLaren, a Mercedes, and an Aston Martin. And not really seeing a dominant car here. The only car that's looking a little bit off, that's sort of carrying on the theme that we've seen this season, is that Porsche Club Sport Cayman, not having the best of runs. Greg Doucette currently carrying the banner for that car in 9th, Jay Dennis in 12th, and the rest of them, unfortunately, farther back in the field.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, last week in Most Sport, I think 9 of the bottom 10 were all Porsches, so that does not appear to be the car to choose, but drivers are sticking with it, and they clearly think there's something good about it. But Owen Watts here, he wasn't here last week at Most Sports, so he's got one DNS. That's going to be his drop week. You only get one of them, so he's got to be in championship mode. He cannot afford to lose any more results because he has given up his drop week. Can he improve on a 151.2? Can he break down that 6/10th gap? He can, but unfortunately it's still a 5/10th gap, and that's not going to be much solace for Owen Watts.
No, it's not. And we're going to have to see here if that hard point by Delta Motorsport driver, or by Delta Sport driver rather, is able to get his way up forward and try to close that gap a little bit more. The one bit of solace that he will have is he's now going to have about 0.5 of a second up on Francis Castillo behind him. So it looks like he may be able to run into a little bit of an island unto himself, but we'll have to see how that plays out in the race. Only 45 seconds left to go in qualifying. Not a lot of time here on the boards. Drivers are going to try to put their best lap forward.
Last chance for Watts. Last chance for Romero. Romero and Brockway are the two closest drivers. That's probably the one you're going to have to watch, see if either of them can jump each other, pick up a couple of extra thousandths, starting the inside or the outside of the second row, and that is an interesting thing. Into turn one here. Do you want to be on the inside? Do you want to be on the outside? The inside's where you want to be, probably. Pole's always good. The inside row's always good, but you can sweep around the outside at turn one, becomes the inside for the next part of the corner, then becomes the outside again, then becomes the inside again. The track switches back all the way, and inside or outside, either one could work out.
It certainly could, as checkered flag flies here in qualifying. Drivers finishing up their hot laps right now. Does look like Sean Campbell's out on track. We follow Jay Dennis, though, in the second of the Porsche clubs, the Porsche Cayman Club Sports, as he works his way around, trying to see if he's able to get anything there. Car looking a little bit squirrely coming down through Villeneuve, and that's going to be Dennis's day done for qualifying.
And you do have to worry about off tracks at this place. In some of these corners, there's a lot of grass, but there is some paved runoff. Right here through Aqua Minerale, you can actually get a slowdown if you go a little bit too wide there. Nicholas Caran just keeps it on the track, though, but with the incident limits that always come into this broadcast as a talking point, you're going to have to think about those incident limits, especially with these big, heavy GT4 cars that are so easy to just lose and drive off the road. But Caran just has kept it on the road in this Porsche with that familiar Pfaff plaid livery. I shouldn't say it's a Pfaff livery. They don't own plaid, but Nicholas Caran just owning the track here, and he's got one more corner to go.
Let's see here what Nicholas is going to be able to do. He is tracking pretty quick here, so this could be an improvement up from 17th place for the Porsche driver. He's going to come down past the sweeping straightaway here, coming to the line right now. He is is going to be able to improve, and that's going to bump him up into 16th place, so a good run there for him.
One more position, or two more positions rather. He's going to be starting on the outside there in 16th. That's going to be a pinch point coming into the start here, though, that deep in the field.
Yeah, it certainly is. We've seen plenty of drivers coming together there, but let's go ahead and walk you through that field. As we said, it is Sean Campbell lining up in pole position, followed by Owen Watts with Francis Castillo-Romero in third and Adam Brockway in fourth. Brian Vorse will be in fifth, followed by Rob Campbell in sixth. Jerome Bertillon will be lining up in seventh. He's had some bad luck recently, hoping to be able to have a better run here. Keith Bonilla will be eighth, followed by Greg Doucette and Marco Oliviero, with Darren Rutherford and Jay Dennis behind them. Lyndon Swaby lines up 13th with Drew Price flanking him. Carlos Lopez is 15th with Nicholas Carandis there in 16th. Matthias Arunga will be 17th, followed by Brian Hoskins in 18th, with Evan Jonesy 19th and Andrew Venaro in 20th. Matt Dinsmore is going to be lining up in 21st, followed by Jeffrey Seabach, and Robert Anderson will be sitting tail end Charlie on the field right now as we wait for qualifying to officially end here. Joey, a tricky circuit, but it definitely rewards some bravery and rewards some valor, and we may see some of that playing into it.
And it rewards driving conservatively, keeping it within the lines, just running your race, defensive driving. But there's those incident limits I talked about. 13, you'll get a drive through. 17, you'll get disqualified. They do come back to bite you here. The GT4 cars are a lot stronger than the open wheel cars, so if you hit some of these evil curbs, you're not going to destroy your car, but you can very easily get an off track, and those 13 incident points can rack up very, very quickly.
Yes, they can, and that may be a talking point that we have to cover over the course of the race with those incident points that we will be keeping an eye on and keeping you abreast of. If anybody does fall afoul of that, it would not be unprecedented here to see a couple of drivers having to serve that drive-through penalty. But right now, everybody's starting to form up on the grid, only waiting for about 3 more cars before the iRacing pace car starts off and we get ready to go racing at Imola.
Sean Campbell's going to be a tough customer to beat up front. If you're waiting for a driver to make a mistake to be able to drive by, Sean Campbell's not going to be that driver. Remember in Mosport last week, I thought he was at risk of driving it off the road through turn 3 at Mosport every single time, but no, he was calculated, he was cool, he kept the car within the lines, and when he's up front, he's almost unbeatable. So Owen Watts is going to have to be very, very aggressive into turn 1 or any time on the first lap if he can stick with him, because half a second in qualifying, Campbell's clearly got the pace, and you got to do something unorthodox to get him off the pedestal here.
Yeah, you most certainly do, and I think Watts and Castillo-Romero as well, 2 of those drivers that are going to be looking to try to maybe press their advantage as much as possible. But all of our 24 drivers are now gridded up and ready to go. Pace car rolls off, and we are headed on down the hill looking for the green flag. Campbell aggressively shaking that car back and forth, trying to get some heat into those tires.
Give a little bit of heat. It is a short-paced lap. You're only doing about 2 corners here coming to the line. So with a big, heavy GT4 car, you want the tires to be as warm as possible. You see Francis warming up his tires there in third, but we're getting ready to go here. 1 more corner, not a lot of time to pack up, and here's Owen Watts' chance.
Yes, indeed, as the pace car pulls off down pit lane, giving control of the field over to Sean Campbell. The rest of the field coming there out of Ravazza 2, as all eyes look to Barney the flag man in the flag stand right now as we wait to get going, and there goes the flag. We are racing in Imola. It is a brilliant start for Sean Campbell, who's immediately able to get about 2 car lengths of an advantage there over Owen Watts. Castillo-Romero and Brockway going to be forming there in behind. Brian Vorse trying to do a little bit of a poke out there for Owen Watts going down into the first corner. That's not going to be anything. Castillo-Romero goes defensive down into the first corner. The first couple of cars look like they're through Tamburello. Okay, and indeed, I think the whole field is able to escape that first chicane nice and cleanly.
Well done, everybody. Well done, Owen Watts. Or actually, well done, Sean Campbell. Owen Watts couldn't stick alongside him at the start. Unfortunately for him, he's just going to have to stay in line here through Villeneuve. Looks like basically the entire field just one by one here. A nice little Italian train into Tosa. Owen Watts just now needs to make sure he doesn't lose Sean Campbell. Stick to the back of him. Maybe get a run down the front straight again. and hope that you can make your move. But right now it is advantage Sean Campbell, and every time he's taken the lead like this, he has been impossible to knock off.
Yeah, he certainly has. Absolutely interminable. And remember, he has been able to seem to gain so much time over the course of the pit stop that we do anticipate over the course of this 40-minute race. So that is going to be something to keep in mind. Looks like all drivers going single file. Whoa, that was somebody off there in the back. I believe that was Matt Dinsmore in the Porsche. That may have been a mechanical issue for him, as it looks like he had no brakes at all, slamming hard into the outside barriers of Agua Minerale.
I think he might have clipped the grass. That's very easy to do, especially on cold tires. You just get a little bit wide through the first part of Agua Minerale, then you just clip the grass on the outside, and you can't brake on the grass. And it ends in disaster for Matt Dinsmore. We'll see a replay of that in a moment, I'm sure. But Owen Watts, great exit here out of the final corner. This is perfect for him. If the McLaren has any straight line speed at all, he's going to be able to pull alongside Campbell, but unfortunately, looks like he just does not have very much in a straight line. He's catching Campbell, but he's not catching him enough, and he's not going to be close enough to send it to the inside. Or is he? No, not even close.
Well, he certainly thought about it there, and that did put Campbell offline ever so slightly, but I think that look to the inside for Watts put him offline even more. But the good news there for them is it looks like it's starting to be a little bit of a two-car breakaway. Here is what happened to Matt Dinsmore. Comes down into the corner. Joey, I don't have any explanation for that. It looked like he didn't clip the corner. I'm not sure what happened.
He got loose on the initial part of the corner. I can see him just get a little bit of wiggle over the curb, and it was just impossible. It's very difficult to recover because he couldn't get it slowed down enough through the first part of the corner. And I'm reminded that there isn't grass on the outside of that corner. That is just green painted asphalt. So unfortunately for him, he lost it earlier in the corner than I thought, but he still lost it, and that's going to be a very big penalty in the race for Matt Dinsmore. He's going to be all the way to the back, and he's going to be driving damaged, and he's the only driver with damage right now. So that is almost the worst possible scenario for Matt.
Yes, it is. As we check back up through the field here, this is the Lunatic Racing number 93 of Rob Campbell trying to close down on Brian Force up ahead of him as they clobber over the curbs there into the Variante Alta, trying to see what they are able to get. Not enough of a run. Sometimes you can see a little bit of attack coming down the hill here into Ravazza 1, but it doesn't look like Rob Campbell and that second Aston Martin in the field is going to be able to quite close in on the front of that McLaren.
It's been a consistent season so far for Rob Campbell, but it hasn't been a dominant season for Rob Campbell. He was the big dog in GT4 racing in the PRL for a bunch of seasons, and unfortunately, he's met the stiffest competition yet here this season. There's so many guys who can win races. There's one guy, Sean Campbell, who seems almost unbeatable, and that tells you the level of competition in this GT4 series right now, that a driver like Rob Campbell is only really able to run 6th right now. He's 4th in the championship, but that's just from pure consistency. Brian Vorse in the championship, he's quite a little bit further down. He's had a little bit of bad luck. He's had a couple of good results, but he's P12 in the championship as well. So the skill level here goes all the way down. It is such a stacked field.
Yeah, it certainly is. As we take a look here on board with Brian Force as he works his way down through the hairpin there, bringing that car up the hill right now. Little bit of a check on the equipment there to make sure he's running nice and easy. Starting to have a little bit of a gap forming up ahead of him to Castillo Romero and Brockway right now, as we're starting to see this field break up into couplets here. Campbell and Watts running by themselves, Castillo Romero and Brockway, and then Force and Campbell.
Look how close Owen Watts has gotten to Sean Campbell, though, through these corners. He's all over the back of him through these twisty parts of the track, but he needs to be closer to him in the places where he can actually make an overtake down the straights, and he's just at a disadvantage, whether that's a McLaren disadvantage, whether that's a specific setup disadvantage. Watts just is not fast enough on the straights, and that's where you need to be fast at Imola to be able to make a move. It's just 3/10 back again into this heavy braking zone. This is where you could be able to make a move. Through turn 1 is where you could be able to make a move. Through Tosa is a heavy braking zone where you can make a move, but Watts is just a couple tenths too far back. He's a couple dozen feet too far back, and we got trouble in the back in the chicane.
and that's Matthias Arunga and I believe Brian Hoskins that had a little bit of a coming together there. We'll get a replay on that later to see exactly what happens, but we've got to keep our eyes focused here. This is the closest we've really seen Owen Watts. Is he going to have a look going down into Tamburello? No, he is just going to keep the pressure up behind Sean Campbell, and I'm a little bit of a split mind about this, Joey. There's part of me that says, yeah, just keep that pressure up. Don't do anything too aggressive, but there's also part of me that says, I don't want to let him be leading going into the pit stops. I want to try to get ahead as quickly as possible. Here is what happened there in the back. Oh, a little bit of front to rear contact between the Aston and the Mercedes, and that's going to send both drivers spinning around.
Yeah, just a misjudgment of the closing distances there for Arangua. Just didn't really expect the Mercedes to be going that slow, but Owen Watts, here he comes. He peeks out to the inside here into Piratella, and he's actually going to be able to make the move. Well done, Owen Watts, for finally being able to close that up, and that might be the first time this season. It was a couple times at Watkins Glen that we saw Sean Campbell get past, but at Imola, that's a whole other question, and Owen Watts, great move into Piratella. Now can he hold it?
Well, it looked like Campbell had a little bit of a better run coming up through Agua Minerale, but I think he backed off just a little bit, letting that McLaren lead the way here now, going down into Variante Alta. Let's see if the BMW is able to get a little bit of better legs here. We do know that that thing can be pretty quick and slippery in a straight line, but is he going to be able to close back on the end of the McLaren as they go down the hill into Ravazza? This is, as you said, really the first time that we have been able to see Sean Campbell have a little bit of a chink in the armor taken out of him there, and so that is very, very surprising. Now as they come out of Ravazza 2, here comes the battle of the straightaways. What's going to happen here between the two?
Campbell's been faster in a straight line. You saw Owen Watts was barely able to catch him in the draft, and here you see the opposite. Campbell much, much quicker in a straight line. Watts, where's he going to defend? He parks in the middle of the track, can't really decide where to go, and Sean Campbell elects to just stick behind him. He doesn't think he needs to go for the move right now. And now it's exactly the opposite situation. Sean Campbell putting the pressure on Owen Watts. Owen Watts was putting the pressure to Sean, but we know Sean's had pressure before, and he just does not make mistakes in the lead of the race. So now, can Owen Watts do exactly the same thing? Can he be as mistake-free as Sean Campbell? He's going to need to be.
Well, he's certainly going to need to be, and here's the other part of this equation. If Owen Watts is just a hair slower than Campbell up in front of the field, is that going to allow for Francis Castillo-Romero to be able to close in on the back? The Mercedes driver there has already been able to pull that into under a second as they run, and I've got to think that if Campbell maybe gets slowed down here a little bit by Watts, he's going to be able to pull in, and the 96 may have a shot to be able to try to move his way forward.
Well, all you ticker trackers at home over there on the left side of the screen, you can see that that gap is coming down. It's down to 1.3 seconds. Last lap, Romero was 3/10 of a second rather, faster than Owen Watts. So Romero is actually the fastest of the three drivers in the top three here. So yeah, he might have a shot. If these two continue to fight, if they get side by side, slow each other down a lot, Francis is really hoping that happens because he's right there. He's within a second, and he's the guy who's going to pick up the pieces if these two come to blows.
Yes, he certainly is. We're going to have to see if those blows do come out. Good run there for Campbell going down through Ravazza 2 as they run, trying to see if he's going to be able to get that acceleration down the straightaway. It's only 0.2 of a second there as they start into the first curve on the main straight. Is this going to be the move? No, it looks like he is feathering the throttle a little bit. Doesn't want to back off. This could be a little bit of the strategy coming into play, Joey. He may be trying to hold out there a little bit, maybe take a little less fuel over the course of the pit stops.
Sound the alarm, ring the bell, it's fuel saving time. And Sean Campbell is pulling the strategy move again. He doesn't want to pass Owen Watts. He's happy to save fuel here, down that long front straight, down some of the other longest straights on the track. He has the ability to make the move, and he's just not doing it because he is intelligent and he's thinking about the grand scheme of things. Owen Watts is thinking about the grand scheme of things too, but he knows that you don't get an opportunity to pass Sean Campbell and take the lead often, so you can't blame him for going for that, but it is just infuriating. Sean Campbell loses the lead and he's going to use it to his own advantage. It's like it's impossible to beat him, but he's got 30 more minutes to get this strategy to actually work out, so I can't get ahead of myself, but it is very, very scary when you hear Sean Campbell lifting off the throttle in second, because that tells you that he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yes, it certainly does. Campbell there getting a good run up through Agua Minerale, just keeping nice and close behind, lifting off there a little bit, coasting early, going down into the Variante Alta as he really takes some clobber of the curbs there. Compare that to Watts in front of him, who looked a little bit more timid going over the corners, and so that is a little bit of an indication there maybe of setup. Campbell may have a little bit more springiness in those dampers on the car, and yes, springiness is a technical term copyrighted here on RaceSpotTV.
Yeah, I believe that comes from the original Italian.
Dare I ask?
I don't even know. Oh, there's the helmet again. Yep, that's my answer. Just look at the Nicolas Cage helmet again. Sean Campbell's going to do exactly the same thing here, and Romero's catching these two as well, so the springiness is very good for Romero because these two are going slow, and Romero's going to make it a 3-car train, and Adam Brockway as well, don't count him out as well. He's catching up to the back of this train. It's going to be a 4-car train, just like with the MX-5s at a very different track.
Yes, it is, and that is going to be very, very interesting. 4 different marks, 4 different models of car, all running within about 1.5 seconds of one another. Francis Castillo Romero able to take about 0.2 of a second there out of the lead to the cars in front of him on that last lap. Adam Brockway doing a great job to hold on to the back there as well. You know, they are just doing exactly what they need to do as the clock ticks down with 28 minutes to go here in this race. Waiting to see what will fire off. Let's take a look farther back down in the field. This is Darren Rutherford trying to work on the back of the standard bearer for the Porsche Cayman, Jay Dennis.
Jay Dennis qualified 12th, if I remember correctly, and he's up 1 spot, picked up that 1 spot just on the precipices of the top 10, or outside the top 10. Lyndon Swaby's the last car in the top 10 here, but oh, there's that wiggle. There's that wiggle again that we saw Matt Dinsmore have on the first lap, but Dennis is able to pick it up. He's able to hold it, and that's a big curb hop for Rutherford, and that's going to be a little bit of time to Jay Dennis's self. He's going to be able to gather it up, and he's not got a battle right now.
No, he doesn't. Here's a nice little battle, though, that we have going on directly behind them. This is Doucette and Price right now, running back in 13th and 14th. Greg trying to hold on there. He's currently the 2nd highest Porsche, back in that 14th position. Drew Price for Hardpoint by Delta Sport, running around there and trying to be able to keep on that standard bearing run for that very, very successful team.
Another peek to the inside for Campbell. He's tricking Owen Watts just a little bit, but I think Owen has realized at this point that Sean is not going to make this move on track. He's going to make the move in the pit lane unless something goes very wrong for Owen Watts. And there's Romero. There's Brockway. It's a 4-car train here at Imola. They have well and truly caught Sean Campbell, but now does Romero make the move on Campbell? Does Brockway make the move on Campbell? How far is Campbell willing to fall for the sake of this strategy? I don't know. I think he's happy to stay in second here. It's going to be difficult for Romero and Brockway to actually make the move, but they want positions, and this is going to be one of their only chances to do it.
Yeah, most certainly. We already talked about how difficult it can be to get a move done around here at Imola, but Owen Watts obviously proving that a little bit wrong. Ooh, a little bit of a squirrely line there coming out of Piratella for Owen Watts. He's able to get that McLaren gathered up back up underneath him, but again, a big curb hop there. Campbell, I think, may see a little bit of an advantage. Watts certainly thinks he's got to defend down to the inside going into Variante Alta. It all comes to naught, but that just pulls Castillo Romero and Brockway even closer.
Brockway took a peek to the inside of Romero, but did not alter the order there through the chicane, and he's going to stay back and forth. I think he really negatively affected his line there with just that little peek, and he's going to lose like 0.7 of a second to the back of Romero, and nothing's going to change through the final couple of corners. It's the same train from the previous lap, and we just got to wait for that pit lane, that pit stop to come. That's going to be when things are going to change, but it's just a little bit of a holding pattern right now until that finally comes, I think.
Well, we're about a third of the way down here in this race, so I would call that pit window officially open, but we'll have to see when drivers decide to do it. Campbell, again, lifting off there, going down into Tamburello, not necessarily wanting to make that aggressive maneuver forward. I've got to think Castillo Romero is noticing that, and he's going to try to press a little bit of an advantage. We look out of the back there of Owen Watts, that mean front end of the BMW, looking very, very aggressive as they go down now into Villeneuve. move. Very, very tight as they run. Not a lot separating these top four. 1.2 seconds. Throw a blanket over all of them. The fight at the front of the field, absolutely electric, Joey.
The front end of that BMW is scary, and it isn't made any less scary by the fact that it says butt kicker on it.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there. That makes it a little bit more terrifying, I have to think. But Watts managing to withstand that pressure really quite well. We've seen a couple of little bits and bobbles there from him, but nothing too terrible for the hard point by Delta Motorsport driver.
No mistakes again, and don't let the fact that Sean Campbell is hanging back here distract you from the fact that Owen Watts is still driving at 100% here. He's not just holding back the pack, driving with one hand on the wheel. He is giving it everything here. You can see him wringing out the car through Variante Alta there. He's all over the road. He's giving this everything. He wants this lead. But again, that's really worrying because Sean Campbell's sticking with him, and we know he's saving fuel. We know he's clutching and coasting, or just coasting through some of these corners. He's able to make the move. He will be able to make the move if he's still behind Owen Watts when he actually needs to, but he's just sticking back here, and Owen Watts is still under the utmost amount of pressure. Probably the most pressure he's felt all season, but he hasn't made a single mistake yet.
No, he certainly hasn't. This is the closest we've seen Sean Campbell get, though, down the start-finish straightaway. Here comes a little bit of a look to the inside. Is Campbell done waiting around? He wants to maybe get his way back forward. Starting to feel a little bit of a pressure from behind from Francis Castillo-Romero. This could get very spicy.
I don't know if that was a real move or if that was just to try and spook Owen Watts a little bit, but we'll see next time around or into one of these other braking zones if Sean Campbell was serious about wanting to take the lead. I can understand if he thinks he's saved enough fuel to make his strategy work. I can understand going for the move now, getting back by Watts and driving into the sunset, but we'll see if he actually is interested in taking this lead. He might want to lead coming into the pit lane as well, or whatever reason, but again, we'll see here into one of these braking zones. Is Sean Campbell serious about this challenge, or is he going to keep sticking back until we get to pit lane? I, for one, hope he is actually going to put up a challenge. I want to see racing up front, but I'm not a strategist.
Well, we'll have to see. As we said here, very difficult to get past around the Imola circuit, but we did see Owen Watts throwing that move up into Piratella, not normally the area where you see an overtake getting thrown, and so maybe we're going to see a little bit of a difference. Whoa, great run there out of Alta for Sean Campbell. Is that going to be the aggression that he needs? Is he going to try to make the move now, going down the hill into Ravazza 1, maybe holding back behind, but no, he is going to lift and coast yet again. Strategy proving a little bit more important to the BMW driver than outright aggression.
This is going to be the critical place, though. The front straight, this is where he was almost able to make a move, or he at least potentially thought about making a move into turn one. He's got the straight line speed advantage in a big way. You can see he's made up about 2/10 and half a straight. Here we go again. Watts defends all the way to the inside. Yeah, all the way to the inside. Campbell's definitely thinking about it, but Owen Watts is also thinking about defending very, very hard. So if Campbell's going to actually make a move, it's going to have to be around the outside. Owen Watts just showed that to him very, very clearly as we got side by side. This is what we wanted to see up front, but Campbell is going to get through Vorse, or is he?
Well, this has been a battle that has changed hands a couple of times over the course of the past few laps. It looks like Vorse is going to be able to hold him off for now, but that's going to allow for Jerome Berthiaume and Keith Bonilla to be able to close right back into the back of it. Bonilla looked like he's going to get a little bit of a move, tries to send it down to the inside there of Tosa. Is he going to get that move done in the YS Motorsports Mercedes? Berthiaume tries to carry as much momentum as he can there around the outside, but that is all for naught. The Mercedes up past Berthiaume and into 7th place.
Jerome Berthiaume giving Bonilla about 7 car lengths there into Tosa, being very, very kind and a little bit too kind, just essentially lets him by, but that is Bonilla up into 7th. And Campbell, he wanted to make that move, but Vorse hangs on through like a 6-corner long battle, but Campbell clearly has a lot of speed. He peaks to the inside. The Aston Martin is decently quick in a straight line, but it's hard to make a pass at that chicane. It's even harder to go side by side through that chicane, so he thinks better, and I think Rob Campbell's going to try and go for that move into turn one again at Tamburello.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Trying to make that move going down into the Variante Alta, that is very much a one-way street. You don't want to try to push it too hard, as we are past the halfway point here in this race. Your top four not opting to come down pit lane. We normally tend to see these drivers push a little bit later on into the fuel stint, if at all humanly possible. So I think that's probably what we're going to see them do. Campbell looks a little bit farther back than he was on that last run, but Owen Watts still going pretty defensive down into Tamburello.
They actually pulled a little bit away from Romero and Brockway on that last lap, but here comes Campbell again. Can he be later on the brakes? He is a little bit later on the brakes, and this time completely clear of Brian Vorst, but Vorst is going to do the switchback through these first three corners. It's so easy to switch it back. The driver in front makes the move on what is the preferred line, then it becomes the not preferred line, then your line becomes the preferred line, and Vorst a little bit of argy-bargy with Campbell for good measure. Gets by him. That's going to be immensely frustrating for Rob Campbell. He had the move made, and now he's almost going to lose a spot to Bonilla.
Yeah, Bonilla looked like he was going to be able to get that done. By the way, we do have two takers down pit lane, Taron Rutherford and Carlos Lopez Jr., both coming on down. We've got a slow car there. That's the number 19 of Jeffrey Seebach. I'm not sure what's going on there with him.
Don't know what happened. I don't know if they made contact in a straight line. That's, I believe, Matias Arangua ahead of him, who's had a little bit of contact earlier in the race, but I did not know what happened to that Porsche. Here we go. Nicholas Karangas, battle for 16th with Matt Knight. And I think Rob Campbell's got into trouble up ahead as well. He's thrown it off the road, and Jerome's gotten by him. Bonilla's gotten by him as well. The mistakes, well, he didn't make any mistakes. Brian Vorst just got back by him, and Campbell has made that mistake, and he's lost a ton of ground here in that battle. Here's what happened.
Is
this too deep on the curb?
Too deep. Good call there. Just hit that curb. We saw that a little bit earlier on, and he is throwing that off. None of your four leaders here opting to come down pit lane. Campbell, though, only about 0.2 of a second behind Owen Watts as they cross over the start-finish line. Waiting to see here if he's going to have a little bit of a poke this way or that. Watts, again, just putting that McLaren in the middle of the track, really preventing any overtake by Owen Watts, and indeed, they're going to stay single file going down into Tamburello.
Campbell does bring it down pit road, though, as does Lyndon Swaby. So drivers who are at a little bit of a disadvantage on that last lap, trying to minimize their losses, might as well get the pit stop out of the way. Price is in, Jonesy's in. A lot of guys starting to bring it down pit road. That means that these leaders are going to have to bring it down very soon. They're all chomping at the bit on those last couple droplets of fuel, but when's it going to happen? And is what Sean Campbell has done every single week so far going to happen again? Is he just going to magically find a 3-second gap after the pit cycle?
Well, we'll have to see there. It looked like he had a little bit of a half-hearted look going down into Tosa there, maybe thinking about trying to do a crossover on Owen Watts ahead of him. Now looks a little bit aggressive going down into Agua Minerale. That is not an area where you want to try to get a pass done, but I think he is just trying to put some pressure to the back here of the 14, see if he can maybe force an error. He's going to run to the inside there, going down into Variante Alta. Watts, not to be dissuaded, sticks to the normal braking zone and gets that car on through.
Yeah, again, you don't make a move through that chicane unless you are very desperate, very desperate to cause an accident, for one. So obviously Sean Campbell not going for that move, clipping the grass down the hill here, down to Ravazza. So Campbell clearly wants to make this move, but he's just stuck behind Owen Watts. He's saving fuel. He doesn't need to go for the move, but you're a driver. The strategy might win the race for you in the grand scheme of things, but it's always still frustrating just running second like this. As there goes Romero and Brockway, third and fourth down pit road. This could be an upset. These two could jump Watts and Campbell if they fight too hard.
Yeah, we'll have to see what ends up happening here. Only 1/10 of a second as they go down into the corner. A little bit of a move to the outside there. Little bit of contact between Watts and Campbell, but they're going to be able to keep it clean. Here comes that fight back that you were talking about a little bit earlier, Joey. That's going to be Campbell trying to line this up. I think this means that he wants to try to come into pit lane this time. He almost chucks it down there into Villeneuve, but Watts is going to stay ahead.
And that is a sign that Sean Campbell wants this lead. He's done saving. He's clearly got speed. He's clearly got the pace over Owen Watts. He's switching back every single corner. Can't get by him, though. And these two are going to be holding each other up. So look for Brockway. Look for Romero. They could steal this one. They could steal some track position. Don't count them out when these two pit.
Looks like the majority of the field opting to come down pit lane. Dennis Doucette, Oliveira, Carangis, Venaro, Anderson, Knight, Dinsmore, all in pit lane right now. So this is the popular point to be able to come down into the lane with about 15 minutes left to go in the race. We keep you abreast there on the split screen. Little bit of a look for Sean Campbell going down into Variante Alta, maybe just trying to force Owen Watts offline. Watts having absolutely none of it, though, and he just keeps on keeping on.
Big differences in pit lane times between Romero and Brockway. Romero 15.9, Brockway 17.3, so a full second of fuel difference, and that is going to be what likely loses that battle for the podium for Adam Brockway for the moment. There's a full second gap up to Romero. Let's see, does Watts bring it down this time? Does Campbell bring it down this time? Has he saved enough fuel to go for a full extra lap? Yes, he has. Here comes the strategy from Sean Campbell, and is it going to work out for him? He's probably going to go one more lap around, and Owen Watts is hoping and praying that the best race of his season so far doesn't come undone in the pits again.
Yeah, most certainly there is Watts is going to be praying that this is not deja vu all over again there for the McLaren driver. He is going to come to rest in his box. Nice and easy, though, as there we take a look back on Castillo, Romero, and Brockway as they exit down into Ravazza 1, down into Ravazza 2 right now, and it looks like Watts is up and moving. It is a long pit lane here, so he's going to have to wait a little bit to get up to speed, but I think he is going to be safely out in front of these two.
Very safely out in front. You can't even see Francis in the background. Is he going to peek out in the background? No, he isn't. That's a huge gap between Watts and Romero. So that one extra lap that Owen Watts did, even when he was fighting like heck with Sean Campbell, he was still 0.8 less in the pits compared to Romero, and clearly he found an extra 3 seconds on that out lap that Romero and Brockway didn't find. So that is incredible for Owen Watts, but now we wait for Campbell.
Yes, indeed we do, as we've got a nice little battle here for 5th in the field right now. Keith Bonilla, Jerome Bertone, and Brian Force running right now, trying to see what they are able to do. Looks like Jerome lost a little bit of time there coming out of Villeneuve, and that may put him under a little bit more of attack here from Brian Force as they work their way out of Tosa. Force certainly looking pretty hungry there in that number 27.
And that is Brockway right ahead, and that is Romero right ahead of Brockway as well. So we've got, actually just kidding, that's Bonilla right ahead. Forgive me, wrong Aston Martin. That's Bonilla ahead of Bertiome, ahead of Brian Vorse, ahead of Rob Campbell, who is still about 2.7 seconds back. And here comes the other Campbell, Sean Campbell, and now we wait.
There you've got the split screen to tell you exactly how this is going to shake out. Campbell coming to rest in the stall right now. For reference, by the way, Owen Watts' stop was 15.1 seconds long. Is that going to be usurped here by Sean Campbell? Waiting. It's going to be a 15.2. This may be a little bit closer. I'm not sure who's going to have the advantage. Watts coming in at full speed right now. Campbell off the limiter, and I think Campbell's going to be able to hold this one out.
Yes, he is, but here comes Watts. He's got the speed. He's going to be right to the back of him. He's actually going to be able to get to the outside, almost here into Tamburello. Watts has warmer tires right now. Campbell's been driving slow in the pit lane. Watts has to pounce here. He's lost the lead, but this is his best chance to take it back. He's got to send it here. And he does.
Send it, he does. Down to the inside of Villeneuve. Muscles his way on by. And for the first time this season after the pit stops, it is somebody besides Sean Campbell leading the race. Owen Watts in the hard point by Delta Sport Machine, able to hold on to the lead of the race with 10 minutes left to go.
For all that fuel saving Sean Campbell was doing, it seems to have been completely for naught. He spent exactly the same amount of time as Owen Watts in the pit lane, or in the stop rather, and on pit lane in total, he was actually half a second slower. So Sean Campbell's pit lane prowess, his strategic prowess, has not worked out for one reason or another, but we know he has the speed. We saw him before when he was doing all that fuel saving. He was clearly faster than Owen Watts, but he just elected not to make the move, and now he's actually got to do it, and he's proven that he's probably able to do it.
Yeah, he is going to have to absolutely chuck that BMW down into some of the corners here. We take a look a little bit further back down in the running order. This is Jay Dennis ahead of Greg Doucette, a battle for 11th right now. Only 0.5 of a second separating these two.
And Greg Doucette getting a little bit jealous of Jay Dennis. He says, you're not going to be the top Porsche, Jay. I want to be the top Porsche in this race down in 11th, unfortunately. None of them in the top 10, but battle rages on here. Greg Doucette's been a little bit quicker over the past couple laps, but who else has been a little bit quicker over the past couple laps? Sean Campbell, and now he's actually in position to make a move.
Yes, he is. He's going to tuck up behind in the draft there of Owen Watts. Watts goes defensive down into Tamburello, and it looks like Campbell's not going to be able to get that move done here quite yet. Is he going to look for a little bit of a crossback as they exit there out of the corner? Carries a little bit more speed. Looks maybe down to the inside going into Villeneuve. He's got to jump on the binders a little bit early, opting not to make the move. Only 9 minutes left to go here at Imola. Time starting to run out a little bit if you are Sean Campbell.
Campbell's not being as aggressive as I thought he would be, but I think he knows that he has the speed. He knows that he's going to be able to stick to the back of Owen Watts by about a 10th or two. I wonder if he's going to wait to make this move until the end of the race, which would be a strange choice considering how difficult it is to pass at Imola. But I don't know what Sean Campbell's thinking here. Will he just pounce on the next lap into the first corner or the second corner or wherever he was able to make the move? I don't know, but Sean Campbell is there on Owen Watts. He has the straight line speed advantage, but how do you make the move and when do you make the move? I'm sure he's wondering the same things.
I'm sure he is as well, and Owen Watts has got to be doing a little bit of that wondering as well, trying to figure out where he needs to go defensive, where he needs not to. Looks like both drivers ran a little bit wide there coming out of Variante Alta. Now they are going to have a little bit of lap traffic that we anticipate them catching up to by the end of this race. That is 23rd place car of Robert Anderson up ahead of them. That could throw a little bit of a wrench into the works here.
It could, especially if they catch Robert Anderson through Tamburello or Villeneuve or any of these sections of track where you can't get out of the way. You are guaranteed to be in the way because it's a single lane, essentially, through those sequences of corners. So Robert Anderson is going to hope that these leaders catch him on a straight, and they probably will. If I time it, I'd say they'll probably catch him after Tosa, and there's a nice place to get out of the way there. But Sean Campbell, again, doesn't make the move. He has such a straight line speed advantage. He's so quick, but he's just electing to wait to make the move still. There's only 7 minutes left in the race. Clearly, Sean knows something that I don't, because he's still not trying to make the move.
Well, is that going to come back to bite him here? Is he going to maybe regret not being a little bit more aggressive here earlier on? By the way, we are going to keep you abreast that battle behind as well between Castillo Romero and Brockway getting very, very fierce, as well as this battle for 5th place. Keith Bonilla barely holding on to an advantage over Jerome Berthiaume and Brian Vorse.
Just a couple of these little tandems, little trains all throughout the field. Keith Bonilla still doing a very good job of holding back Jerome and doing a very good job of holding back Brian Vorse. We know that McLaren can be late on the brakes. We know it can make moves on BMWs. We saw his teammate do the same thing on Sean Campbell, but Brian Vorse just not able to find a way by that big beamer of Berthiaume. But here's another peek from the other Campbell, Sean Campbell, and again, backs out of it. And they're slowly but surely catching Robert Anderson. I think they're going to catch him on the front straight, and that's going to be literally the perfect place for him to get out of the way.
Yeah, it certainly is. As now they exit out of Alta, going down the hill right here. You can sometimes see a little bit of a peak, and there it is indeed. There is that little bit of a peak from Sean Campbell, but he thinks better of it, slots back into line, trying to maybe get the better run here onto the main straightaway, pushing that BMW across. A great exit there out of Brabantza 2. Here comes the Beamer.
Here it comes, down below 1/10. Owen Watts getting a little bit of draft from Robert Anderson as well, who does finally pull out of the way. There he goes, off into the green paint. Very, very respectful by Robert Anderson to get out of the way of the leaders here. But again, there goes Campbell. He switches to the inside, but he's not able to be late enough on the brakes. Owen Watts has the braking advantage. Campbell has the straight line speed advantage, and it is just evening out. It's frustratingly evened out in turn one. That was his best chance, and he just couldn't be late enough on the brakes.
No, he couldn't, and that's that balance of performance coming out to play absolutely perfectly there between the two machines. You kind of love to see it, frankly. A little bit of a look to the outside there of Tosa, but maybe going for a little bit of a crossover. Perfect defense from Watts up in front of him. Just a dab on the brakes there right in the middle of the mid-corner. That's going to prevent Sean Campbell from doing anything coming up the hill here into Piratella, and indeed he's got to back off a little bit, losing maybe a quarter of a tenth of time.
That was where Watts made the move on Campbell originally, so I wonder if Sean was thinking, maybe I'll have a little bit of revenge here, but no, not close enough. He might have been able to send it to the inside, but it likely would have ended in disaster. But here we go. Campbell does get to the inside of Owen Watts. They're going to have to go side by side through Variante Alta. It's almost impossible to go side by side through here with two GT4 cars, but they're going to try and pull it off anyway. Little bit of contact, but they got away with it, and Owen Watts hangs on.
It is a sheer miracle that there was not larger contact there going down through that corner. Absolutely incredible stuff from Owen Watts and Sean Campbell. Here comes Campbell taking a look down into the inside of Ravazza 1. Chucks the BMW in deep, stops it at the apex, and that's Campbell back up into the lead of the race.
Owen Watts just left the door open there, I think, and he has lost the lead, but now can he find a little bit of speed in that McLaren? It has not had the straight line speed advantage, but in the big draft of that BMW does get to the inside. That's incredible. I could not picture that happening down the straight, but Watts does get alongside Sean Campbell, and he's later on the brakes into turn one as always, and he retakes the lead.
But here comes the fight back from Sean Campbell. A little bit of a defensive line there for Owen Watts as they go down, but Campbell's now going to have the preferred line going down into Villeneuve. Is that BMW going to find some little bit of later braking? Yes, he is. He's going to inch his way ahead.
It's switching back every corner, but now where does Owen Watts make the move back? He made that move at Piratella earlier, but he's got to have the Tosa of his life here if he wants to make that move, and he gets a little bit wide. It's going to stay stagnant at 0.3 of a second. There's only going to be 2 laps to go, I think. And Watts is going to find it very difficult to make this move back on Campbell unless Sean makes a mistake.
Yes, he is. He's going to have to try to push his way forward very, very hard here, but the gap now about 3.5 of a second. That McLaren going to have to really hustle his way around here to see if he can gain anything back. He's going to have to rely on the better braking of that McLaren. A little bit of a corner cut there, but no penalty given to Owen Watts. He is hustling that number 14 to the inch of his life.
And you'll notice in the background, Adam Brockway has jumped Francis Castillo-Romero. He's up to the podium as well, but this battle for the lead, it's falling apart just a little bit, but I don't think it's over. It's half a second now. That's as big as this gap has been in like the last half an hour, but Owen Watts has to find something here through Ravazza, equal on the brakes with Campbell, through the last part of Ravazza, equal with Campbell, 0.4 of a second. That's going to be too big of a gap to make up on the straight, but it's going to be 2 more laps of running around here for Watts to find some way to get back by, and it's going to be very, very difficult to do so.
Yes, it is, and as you called perfectly there, Joey, 2 laps to go here at Imola, and that gap coming down just a little bit, but Watts going to be better on the binders, really taking every inch of the track, almost kicking up a little bit of grass there on the entrance into the corner there of Tamburello, and that's going to lose him a little bit of time. He lost about 0.5 tenth there. Is this the lead of the race slipping away from Owen Watts?
The problem here is Sean Campbell has the pace advantage. Owen Watts does not, and now he's just pushing a little bit too hard to try and make up that pace advantage, and he just can't do it, and it's not working out for him. It's slipping away. He's actually driving a little bit slower than I think he was before. The gap now expanding to 0.8 of a second. It's probably going to be upwards of a full second because Sean Campbell is taking control here, and Owen Watts is throwing everything at the table, but that just seems to be slowing him down.
Yeah, he's throwing everything and the kitchen sink here at it, but the gap up to about 8.5 of a second. It does look like that Owen Watts is just running out of time and running out of pace, unfortunately. I don't think he's going to be able to close this down as they go down into Variante Alta for what is the penultimate time now. Sean Campbell leading the way, the gap expanding near a full second.
And this is just... I said Owen Watts is pushing too hard. I'm sure he's frustrated, but I don't know what else he could have done. Campbell had the advantage. He had the speed advantage. Owen's probably thinking back to that lap at Ravazza when Sean got by. He's probably thinking, I should have placed the car on the inside of the track, but it seems like it was almost a matter of time until Sean was going to get by, and now he's going to take the white flag, and the gap is north of a second, and yet again, in yet another different way, Sean Campbell's going to find a way to win a GT4 race in the PRL.
Yes, he is, and along the way in doing that, Sean Campbell sets the fastest lap of the race there by a pretty hefty margin with a 156.4. So that is an absolutely remarkable lap there from Sean Campbell. Just as a frame of reference, the other fastest laps that I'm seeing is about a 151.1 from Owen Watts.
And a 151.1 is still ridiculously fast for Owen Watts. The next fastest lap in the field is in the mid 151s, a 151.4. So these two have been the class of the field, but unfortunately for Owen, Sean has just been in a class of his own a little bit. It's the biggest fight we've seen all season. Watkins Glen was a heck of a duel, but that was a little bit of a draft fest. And now, at a track where it's at its most difficult to pass, Owen Watts has still done a very good job. He passed Sean Campbell multiple times. He put up an incredible fight. It's just not gone his way at the end here.
Bad news, by the way, for fans of Jay Dennis, is the driver of the Porsche unfortunately had a drive-through penalty, and the 223 had to come back down pit lane. But that is not of any of the concern here for your leader, Sean Campbell, as he brings the car down the hill for the final time. The gap at about 1.1 seconds between himself and his rival of Owen Watts. Absolutely incredible stuff here from Campbell. We have seen him have to dig. We have seen him dominate earlier on in the season, but absolutely incredible stuff. Sean Campbell brings the car out of Ravazza 2 down this curving front straightaway, and that is going to be Sean Campbell taking victory here in Imola. Congratulations, Sean.
Bravo, Sean Campbell. Bravo. I think he should work on a sponsorship deal with Wendy's because he's gone for the 4 for 4. And is that Romero? That's Romero out of fuel. Romero's under fueled, and that's going to drop him to 8th place as Campbell gets by at the line.
Oh my goodness there, Francis Castillo Romero running into problems. That's going to drop him all the way down to 8th place. Lyndon Swaby barely missing out on that, it looks like. But your podium finishers here will be Campbell, Watts, and Brockway. We check back in on Lopez right here, who has Andrew Venaro hot on his heels. Is he going to be able to hold off that number 38 behind him? Venaro looking a little bit squirrely there, coming off of the corner. Not sure if he's going to be able to make anything happen. And indeed, I think that is going to be Lopez coming across the line easy.
Easy for that Porsche. A couple other Porsches behind. Not the best day to be in a Porsche Cayman. Top one was Greg Doucette in 11th. Here's Nicholas Carangis, another one of those plaid Porsches. Brings it home. A quiet P15. Drew Price, quiet P16. Evan Jonesy's going to be a quiet P17. Jeffrey Seebach, not a quiet P18. We saw him get into a little bit of trouble, and what in the world? Evan Jonesy missed the line, I think.
Yeah, I think he misjudged when that line was, and that's going to be a little bit of a problem there for him. Waiting for the last driver right here, Matt Dinsmore, to cross over the line. He will be the last driver to finish on the lead lap as we just wait for that one last driver to cross over here. But my goodness gracious, there he goes. And that will bring us to our final finishing order here. As we said, it was Sean Campbell able to wrestle victory away there from Owen Watts to take his 4th consecutive victory over the course of the season. Watts second, Brockway in 3rd, Keith Bonilla in 4th, Brian Vorse in 5th, Jerome Bertillon able to come home in 6th, followed by Rob Campbell and Francis Castillo Romero running out of fuel there on the last lap, comes home 8th. Behind him, it was Lyndon Swaby, followed by Darren Rutherford. And behind him, it was Greg Doucette, the first of the Porsches, coming home in 11th. Then it was Marco Oliveira, Carlos Lopez, Andrew Venaro, Nicholas Carangis, Drew Price, Evan Jonesy, Jeffrey Seebach, Brian Hoskins, and Matt Dinsmore to round out your top 20. Robert Anderson was able to come home in P21, the first of the drivers to lap down, followed by Jay Dennis and Matt Knight and Matthias Arunga there, rounding out your 24-car grid. Well, Joey, it was a very different way to get there, but the finishing order coming home kind of exactly what we've expected it to have happen.
And that was a great battle. Imola is not always expected to put on the best racing, especially in GT4 cars, but Owen Watson Campbell, I think they made passes in just about every single corner on the track, so this is about as good as an Imola race has ever been, and Sean Campbell, the utmost pressure, a great battle. What's next? What can he do next? Is he going to go 5 for 5? Can he go for the perfect season? Who knows?
Well, we'll have to see. We head to a different kettle of fish entirely next time out in the form of Lime Rock Park, and that could be the great equalizer there. That circuit, very, very short, very, very quick. We're gonna have to see how that plays out. I've got to think that may favor the McLaren just a little bit more than the BMW. That McLaren tends to be a little bit more agile and a little bit quicker through those corners, and as we saw today, a little bit better on the binders, so that could be the great equalizer. As there you can see, that is where we head next, July 25th at 9:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Joey, I know I am very, very much looking forward to that race.
Especially because it's the classic layout. I love the classic layout of Lime Rock. Every single corner is a fast corner. It's high commitment. It's the ultimate track for high-speed corners, and that will likely favor the McLaren, so I'm looking forward to next week.
As am I, but for this week, we are able to talk to a couple of our drivers. First off, Jerome Berthiaume, who was able to come home in P6. Jerome, looks like a pretty eventful race for you out there. You were really slicing and dicing it up with Brian and Rob throughout the course of the race.
Yeah, it's exactly. I had a good start, but the first 3-4 lap, I was very slow, and it was super hard to get the temp on the tires. So at some point I was catching them, and Brian was slowing us, so I decided to just start saving fuel. It did work though, because I jumped Vorse on the pit stop, but yeah, there was an incident. I think it was on the last corner or something like that. I got bumped a little bit, so that has upset my car, and then I got a corner cut because of that.
Well, we hate to see that happening there for you on that, but how did you find the BMW out here? It looked like, from what we could tell, that car had some really, really good straight line speed, and it looked like it was kind of given a little bit of an advantage.
Just for that, because the car was really hard to manage today. I was fast on the top speed. There was a few corners that I have confidence, but the last two corners, the car wasn't great. The last chicane, it was really hard as well. So no, it was not the super car, but from a defense perspective, yes, it was a good one, because we were able to defend on the straight.
Well, as we look ahead there, I think it may not be the easiest straight to defend on when we head out next time to Lime Rock Park. Are you going to have a little bit of trouble there, or what do you think is going to happen?
It's hard to say, because at some point I'm seeing Lime Rock a bit as the same as Canadian Tire most part, the track from last week. There's a lot of fast corner at some point, so that's going to be interesting. Who knows? I would have thought that I would have got a good car for tonight, but it was not a good car, so who knows? Maybe next races would be better.
Well, we wish you all the luck when we get there, Jerome, but anybody you'd like to thank for the run here today?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for my teammate for a good race tonight. Thanks for all our sponsor, Advanced Sim Racing, Bot Kicker, Race Lab. Thanks also to Ninja Trader, and a big thanks to you for broadcasting.
Well, we are more than happy to do so, and thank you so much, and congratulations on a good run out there to come home 6th.
Thank you.
All right, that was Jerome Berthiaume there, your 6th place driver, and now we have been able to catch up with, or Joey, you've been able to catch up with Marco Oliveira, who came home in 12th place.
Yeah, Marco coming home in 11th place, looks like on my screen, so at the line, making up one spot. Seemed like it was a little bit of a quiet day for you. How was it here at Imola tonight?
It was a tough race, like my teammate Jerome just said earlier. The car was great on the straight, but I don't know, it was tough to handle. And yeah, I did a huge mistake on my pit box. I just went straight. I had to back out, reverse. I didn't get any flags for some reason. I don't know what happened there, but thankfully iRacing didn't give me any black flags, so I kept going. But yeah, I lost a lot of time in the pit.
Seemed like up front, Sean Campbell, the eventual winner, he had a lot of straight line speed advantage in that BMW. Seemed like it was almost unbeatable down the straights. Was your BMW similarly slippery in a straight line?
It was great on straight line. The thing is, I couldn't get those two last turns correctly, right? So I was losing a lot of stop end speed at the end of that straight line, and yeah, that cost me a lot of time.
How tough is it through those last corners, especially? You were struggling with them, but we were talking about in this field the level of competition. It's always been good in the PRL, but it seems like right now it is tougher than it's ever been. Do you feel the same way?
Oh, it is. It is. You get those fast guys up front, right? And you have like kind of two different fields, and you get those two fast. I mean, there's some guys missing tonight, but there's like a bunch up front, and we have the second field that's even tighter. But yeah, I mean, there's no room for any mistakes. There's already somebody on your back. So, and also I want to just mention on this track, the incident limit was 13 to get drive-through. I think some drivers did get. I don't know, maybe you guys know more than me, but that's one thing that turned me off the whole race. I was being so careful into some corners to avoid those incidents, and I still got 10, I think. So it was really tough. It was really tough.
I think a couple of guys did go over the incident limit, but
they did.
You were not one of them. 10 incident points. That's better than 13. How are you feeling about Lime Rock next week, by the way? High commitment all the way around, high speed. You think you're going to do well there as well?
Hopefully. I just need to go do better than what I did tonight. And let's get a top 10. That's what I'm aiming for. I'm outside of the top 10 tonight, but let's do it next week.
Yep. The only way is up. Good luck next week.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
That was Marco Oliveira, just outside the top 10 this week, but I'm sure that will change next week. And looks like that's it tonight, DJ. That's everybody. I hope one of these weeks we can talk to the mystery man, Sean Campbell. I want to talk to him. He's been so dominant, but he's been in the shadows. He's been hiding. I want to know his secrets.
I want to know as well, but we're going to have to wait at least another week to find that out. But as you said, Joey, that's about going to wrap things up for us here on RaceSpotTV tonight. But we would like to thank you all so much for joining us. And on behalf of Joey Tebben, who has been joining me here in the booth, as well as our director and producer behind the scenes, Hugo Louise, thank you once again for joining us here today. And until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.